in a world of remakes and remasters.
Are we playing for
What was once sacred and cool has now soured and become lame.
Red?
Gone are the days of Pods and Cowabunga. Now is the reign of slurp juice and dabs. Kids these days don't even know how bad they've got it. Now it's up to the best generation to rise to the occasion and make a show that dares to go where a lot of other nerdy shows have already gone quite a bit. That's right. They're going to talk about it a lot.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is Best Gen, where nerds complain about nerdy things. The show's called Best Gen because I thought it was catchy. I don't have the heart tonight to come up with a witty joke about nostalgia because there's nothing nostalgic about today's show. We're going to be talking about the Rings of Power and She-Hulk. There's a lot of bad takes to cover, our favorite segment, and we're going to talk about Bullet Train because I saw that. I last night. Yeah. I was screen grabbing footage to make like a funny intro video making fun of Rings of Power, and I was really tired and I thought I'm gonna go to the movie theaters instead, and I watched Bullet Train with my wife and I had a great time, and it was a much better evening than what I had initially planned for myself. So we're going to talk some Bullet Train. It's just two of us right now, but Jared is on his way. Even he's in the chat though, so I don't know if he's driving.
Don't drive and chat, guys.
Put your phone down. But yeah, I see a lot of people in the chat. This should be a fun discussion. Let's wait. Liz was going to join us as well this week, but she's not going to be able to make it last minute. But we'll make sure to get her back on the show to talk about some Rings of Power. I'm wearing a shirt.
Ooh, nice shirt, bro.
I'm wearing a shirt because I got some merch, boys. I made it myself. I didn't make it. I made someone else make it.
You got two shirts.
I got some shirts. If you look in the description of this video, there's a link to my merch page. But I was actually wondering if I could get some feedback, because I feel really bad asking for money from people. So I turned the prices all the way down on these print on demand things. So
some YouTubers are charging like $30-$40 for a single t-shirt. It's like, that's ridiculous.
Well, that's the thing with print on demand, because there's no initial investment up front. They print on demand. It is more expensive to produce the t-shirts. If you do it en masse, you can create not a mold. That's how you do miniatures, but you can create you can do it cheaper. So it's more expensive. Like the base price just to do it is like $13. And so if I want to make money off of it, I have to make it higher. So I literally just picked the cheapest shirts they have, which are these Hanes t-shirts. And it's a print, and I don't make a lot of money off of them, but if you want them, they're cool. But yeah, if you got feedback, if you want us, it feels weird. So I want to know from the chat if I should stick with just the dirt cheap shirts, or if like people would be willing to pay for a more quality shirt. But the print is pretty good quality. I like it.
Yeah, I like that print. That's cool.
Oh, Jared's wife is driving. So she doesn't want to. She hates it when you're too negative. Yeah, my wife complains that my wife gets upset because I frequently talk about movies and I'm frequently complaining because a lot of them are bad. But I swear it's never me that brings it up. People ask me my opinion and I'll start talking, and then I get a glare from my wife. He's ranting about movies again.
Yeah, I can attest to that. Happened earlier this afternoon.
Mark is waiting for Jared's spin on Rings of Power. Well, Jared will get here eventually, and we will talk Rings of Power. But first we got here. I'll give you a little glimpse. This is my merch page, baby. So I don't know. I tried to make them real cheap. Some of them are expensive, like hoodies.
That's a hoodie, though. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me know if you.
Nice.
They're dirt. I try to make them as cheap as physically possible.
Very nice.
But we got some news, though. We got some fun news. I thought, since we're going to be delving into the dark depths of Rings of Power, which is a vestibule of sin that's going to get me really depressed, I thought we'd open it off with a little funny, because I found this ad and it made me laugh for like 10 minutes straight. It's an ad for losing fat. Here we 5 ways to reduce visceral fat, backed by science. But the picture, the problem is they're looking at each other, right? And this looks like it needs like a Brazers logo on it, and not Science Tech Daily.
It looks like he's showing the other guy something.
Oh, yeah. It's funny. It's funny. We've got some articles as well from Bounding into Comics. Some of these are a little bit older. But we got another article on Eric July, his ISOM comics. He's being attacked by CBR, who we absolutely adore on this channel.
Oh yes,
by like the owners and writers of CBR have openly like launched a campaign against him. It is hilarious if you go on Twitter, the people that are upset about him
just making
trying
comics
to write his own story. It's funny because like they don't have to read it, but they're upset that other people want to read it.
Yeah.
It's crazy. If you want an entertaining time, go follow Eric July on Twitter and just look at all of like the sick, very angry people that yell at him constantly for making comic books. Also, go buy ISOM. I can't wait for mine.
Yeah, I ordered my copy. Not the cover that I prefer, but all the other ones were sold out. So what you gonna do?
And we have another report that Amazon has stated that it doesn't matter what the viewership of Rings of Power is going to be. They're going to declare it a success.
Of course, they'll try to save face, no matter what happens. But
yeah,
they do care about viewership.
This is like just like a fancy way of saying, like, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine, right? Like,
yeah, yeah, exactly, right.
Are you sure there's not a problem? No, really, I'm okay. Like,
yeah, of course they're not going to declare it.
Wouldn't anyone try and pretend that everything's going well?
Yeah, that's the last thing that they're going to do is admit, oh yeah, this was a financial failure and it's not doing as good as we hoped.
Yeah.
No, they're going to save face for as long as possible.
This is funny. The reason why it's going to succeed is because the executives at Amazon need it to succeed. That doesn't mean that it will. If it doesn't succeed, there's going to be a big question for Amazon. Yeah, they're basically using this as their flagship for, should we still make movies? Because if this doesn't work, I don't know. It's kind of crazy.
You know, then they have other stuff that they're still making that's still good. You know, like the Terminal List. I just recently finished that. That was pretty
dope.
good. I did think that there were a little bit too much civilian casualties in the
last episode.
The last episode, and then I think 2 episodes before that. I didn't really enjoy that, but it was a good episode, a good season. It was basically like Taken the movie, but instead of kidnapping a daughter, it's murdering a whole civilian or troop of army.
Yeah, I really liked the Terminal List.
Good. And then the other show, the Jack Ryan show that they did, was really good. I never got around to finishing the 2nd season, but the 1st season was fantastic.
People like Reacher too.
Yes, that's on my watch list too. I haven't seen that one yet. So they're still putting out some good stuff. It's just, I think, they're going to have
but they put a lot of money into this one.
They put a lot of money into this. They put a lot of money into Wheel of Time. And I think they're going to have a real reckoning coming here, where they're going to have to reevaluate, what the viewers really want to see. So
it's just insane to me. Yeah, we will eventually. I promise that we will talk about the Rings of Power, but because we're still waiting for Jared.
Yeah, what are you doing, Jared? Get here already.
I loved Bullet Train.
Yes.
Has anyone else in the chat seen that?
Bullet Train was really, really fun. It's ridiculous at times, but it's so well crafted and well thought out. There's multiple payoffs. It's really written with attention to detail on plot points and story arcs. It's just chef's kiss.
So I saw the trailer for Bullet Train, and I was like, this looks like some dumb fun. Like, maybe it will make me feel like John Wick 1 made me feel. Like it'll be a fun, brainless action movie.
That's what I went into it with,
And that's not what it was. It was like an art piece.
Yeah.
It was still dumb fun, but it was done so well.
It was clever, dumb fun.
It felt smart.
Yeah.
Like it basically did what Steven Spielberg did for Pulp Fiction. You had all these campy stories with adventures and things.
Yeah.
And Steven Spielberg said, I love this crap. I'm going to take it and I'm going to make a movie out of it. And I'm going to do it as serious as possible. And you get Jurassic Park and Star Wars. Star Wars is Pulp Fiction. But it's done so well that it becomes art. And Bullet Train was beautiful. I was not expecting. I knew I was going to enjoy myself in the theater, but I wasn't expecting to absolutely love the film. Yeah. Okay, Pulp Fiction was by Quentin Tarantino. Okay, yeah. It's also a thing. That film is named after the term Pulp Fiction. Yeah. That's a good movie, though.
Yeah. But Bullet Train was really good, and what's more too is it's basically a stress humor show, but with action on top of it. And it was weird is my wife hates stress humor. I've tried to introduce her to some of my favorite stress humor movies, like some old classic ones, like What Happened on the Way to the Forum and What's Up, Doc.
It's funny that you should mention
Oscar's a really good one. And
it's funny that you should mention those two films, though. A funny thing happened on the way to the forum and What's Up, Doc? Because this isn't just a stress film; it's also an intricate dance. And those movies do the same thing, where there are hundreds of moving parts, and you're like, none of these things are important on their own, and then it comes together, and you're like, whoa, this is actually like an intricate puzzle, and everything is supposed to be here.
It's so good. And it just ties into each other, and there's multiple payoffs of earlier things that were just mentioned on there, just whether they be lines or, character relationships and stuff. So good. And another one that I really like is Oscar. You remember that old...
Oscar is beautiful. Oscar's a great stress comedy. It has less moving pieces.
Yes,
it's
not
more,
quite as much as the other two.
Oscar is a shut-in movie.
And actually, I realized I loved. We grew up on What's Up, Doc with what was it, Barbara Streisand and I forget the guy in it. But anyways, I found out that that's actually a remake of an original movie called was it Bringing Up Baby? Is what it's called? I don't remember. Anyway, it's like it's a completely unrelated thing about a tiger, like a little pet tiger, but it's the same exact as What's Up, Doc? But it's this old black and white movie that they remade.
Eight on the Lamb with Bob Hope. I gotta look that up.
I haven't heard that one.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I love stress humor.
I've never heard of that one. That looks fun. Jared says the payoff was here, let me show it. The payoff was not as mind-blowing as I wanted it to be, but it was still good and well done and enjoyable. Yes, I agree. Let's talk a little bit spoilers. I won't spoil the whole thing, but I thought, because it starts off with there are like 5 assassins on this train all going after the same thing. And so they're bouncing around trying to fight for the same package and protect/kill the same person, and it's mayhem and a bunch of sides and alliances shifting back and forth. And then the reveal at the end is that the big bad guy hired all of them, and I didn't love that. Because the themes prior to that was that it's all like fate and bad luck. The main character is super unlucky, and all these bad things keep happening to him. And then he started revealing, no, I was behind it all. I hired all these people. I even killed my own son because he was a disgrace to me, and he's responsible for my wife's death. And I didn't like it until the 6th reveal, which was that even the main character was there by mistake.
Yeah.
And that it was supposed to be, he was just filling in for someone, because then it brought it back to, because until then it was still like, oh, but this kind of betrays the entire theme of the movie, until you realize, oh, it was for someone else, and I was just filling in for this assassin.
Yeah,
and that
was a throwaway line in the very beginning.
Exactly, it brought it back to the theme that I liked about the movie.
Yeah,
I think it's good that we're starting off talking about Bullet Train, because a lot of people say, "Well, you just don't like anything anymore," and that's not true. Yeah. I would have loved for Rings of Power to have been great. I would have liked for She-Hulk to have been great, but the problem is they're not, and it's not just that I hate everything now, because Bullet Train was fantastic, and Top Gun Maverick was. I just convinced 2 more people to see it yesterday, and they were and then I talked to them today, and they're like, yeah, okay. Thanks. it was really good. Yeah. The last reveal it brought it back a little bit, but yeah, the payoff at the end gets a little bit ridiculous, but it was that last reveal saved it for me. I will say The cameo at the very end did not work for me. The surprise cameo, because up until then the humor was really smart and funny, and then the cameo at the end kind of felt cheesy.
Which cameo at the end?
His handler.
Oh, but that was obviously her voice over the phone.
I know. And she
was in the trailer.
Yeah, I didn't see her in the trailer, but when the dialogue when she showed up,
yeah, it was a little
felt
bit forced.
Really corny, and it had been so smart. It had been so smart up until that point.
Yeah.
You like, okay, all right. Everyone likes the cameo. My wife did not, and we both love. I guess if she's in the trailer, I can spoil it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she's in the trailer.
I had no idea.
It didn't even show it didn't, because it showed her talking on the phone in the trailer, and it never showed that in the movie. But I'm pretty sure she was in the trailer. I knew it had Sandra Bullock the whole time.
Bringing Up Baby, I haven't seen that one either. Cary Grant and Katharine Hepburn.
I watched that in a film class, and after I watched it, I was like, it on the surface, it doesn't look like the same movie at all of What's Up, Doc. But it's got this like leopard or whatever that they're babysitting, and it gets put in a basket, and they mix up the baskets or something like that. I don't remember. But after I watched it,
one of those like loosely based on
before. No, it has like almost exact story beats, but a completely different setting.
A different paint job. Yeah.
It's almost the exact same movie. It's wild how similar they are.
How far apart were those? That looks like 15 years. Katharine Hepburn and Barbara Streisand.
What's Up, Doc was in 1972.
Bring Up Baby is 1938.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a lot.
Cary Grant is old. Classic original movie star. So, yeah, so that's several years apart. But yeah, they're both very good. I like them a lot. So, but yeah, I love that kind of stress humor. There's just like everything's just piling up on top of each other, but then you have multiple payoffs, and then if you watch it again too, a lot of times if you watch these shows, these stress humor shows again, you pick up on more things, and it's like, oh, that's why they did that, because it goes out here. I love that type of thing, and my wife usually hates them, but she loved Bullet Train. It was awesome.
Yeah. Who was your favorite? Because there were a lot of characters. Who was your favorite character in Bullet Train?
Oh, I think I like the twins.
The twins. Which ones?
It's hard. They're both so good. I think I like the big black guy with the. So I was talking about Thomas the Train.
Yeah, he was a great character, but as far as like acting performance, the other brother Tangerine. My wife and I both after the film were like, "Who was that guy? He was incredible."
Yeah,
they were
both really good.
The other guy was funnier, but it turns out I could not figure out who he was. It's Aaron Taylor Johnson. It's Quicksilver.
No,
from the MCU.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. From Age of Ultron.
Tangerine. Here we go.
But yeah, my wife and I were it's Quicksilver. My wife and I both were like,
it's his stash.
His
mustache is like, holy cow.
His performance was beautiful.
Yeah,
I don't want
to spoil it in the chat, but yeah, the moment when he near the very end, he gets his character gets very emotional, and you're right, that the acting on that part was so good.
Yeah, his brother was great too, and I did not like him in Eternals at all, but he was great. He was great in this. He was one of the 13 or 86 Eternals, so that's why you don't remember. Yeah, he was fantastic. His big moment, I saw it happen, and and I was like, yep.
Yeah.
Called it. It was good.
Yeah, it was fun. It was really fun.
I think the other cameo in there were two moving pieces that I felt didn't have a payoff because they just forgot about them. It's the other celebrity cameo in the movie. They brought him into it, and I assumed it was going to come back into play, and he's just forgotten. He gets to, though he wears his hat. He wears Brad Pitt's hat as a distraction.
Okay.
And he's kind of just forgotten about. And then the conductor, not the conductor, the ticket guy.
The ticket guy, yeah, he kind of just disappears.
But they kept. It felt like he was going to come back.
Yeah,
and then he never does. And
I think that's because
all of the other.
end,
but it was amazing how many other pieces were being juggled and had amazing payoffs.
Yes,
like those were the only two balls that got dropped for me.
Well, and I think the train conductor, not the conductor, the ticket guy. I think his absence in the end is explained when the villain says.
Yeah, but the way he was used felt like they were setting something up.
Yes.
I agree that it's explained, but it's kind of just like, I've got too many balls, I got to throw this.
Yeah, I agree, but you got to have a couple of red herrings in there to keep you guessing, So.
Thanks. Oh, I made it, Martina.
Yeah. Another good kind of along the lines of a stress humor show, but more of a mystery than action is Knives Out. Knives Out was really good too. It's not quite as much stress humor, but it's kind of the same thing of juggling a lot of different story beats and whatever.
It has a stress segment.
Yes. So I wouldn't call it traditional stress humor type of stuff.
I wouldn't either.
But it's along the same veins. I think it's tangentially related. But
it was a fun time.
Yeah, go see Bullet Train.
Its editing was phenomenal. The way that they worked, the way that they filmed every character's backstory, and they all came into play at different parts of the movie. But specifically, the Mexican assassin, not Viper. It was I can't remember his name. It's a Bad Bunny.
Hornet. It was Bad Bunny. That was his name.
That's his real life name. It's not his real name, but he's a. I think he does music. I don't do pop stuff, so I don't know.
No, he had a cool backstory.
No,
it looks straight out of Breaking Bad,
But it wasn't just that his backstory was cool; it was the way that it was filmed was beautiful. Like revolving around the bed, which was like a barrel.
Yes.
It was a revolver of a gun.
Yes.
It was just really, really good CGI in transition. So I was shocked, and then they make fun of that trope at the end with a joke that I don't want to spoil because it's fantastic. So go see Bullet Train. It was just one of those moments where I was just like, oh man, I'm just really happy right now. And it made my week because I had already gone through She-Hulk and Rings of Power, and I was not in a good place. And then I watched Bullet Train and I was like, there's still hope.
Yeah.
There's still hope out there.
There's still people making good stuff. Just got to sift through more crap. But yeah, it was fun.
He's going to be Blue Beetle? I thought that I assume you're referring to Aaron Taylor Johnson. I heard that he was I heard he was coming into the MCU as a different character. I thought it was I can't remember.
I don't know what you guys are talking about.
I don't know who the Blue Beetle is. I don't know everything. I'm sorry that you have not seen what I've seen. Oh nice boy, transition. Rings of Power. Rings of Power. Let's start talking about it because we're going to be talking about it for a while, and Jared can jump in.
You want to do bad takes first, or is that?
Nah, we still have She-Hulk to talk about eventually. So that's a good segue.
Mm-hmm.
Rings of Power.
Yes. It's a show. Cinematically, it's the sets are beautiful.
You can see the money on the screen.
Yes.
And it's
well,
all put into the sets
yes.
and the CGI. The problem is it's still not good because the costumes are garbage.
Mm-hmm.
So you're looking at these beautiful sets and then action figures, cosplayers walking through the sets, and then you see these beautiful backdrops, and then sorry, you see these beautiful backdrops and beautiful CGI, and it's edited horribly and cut to hell, and so you can't, like, the fight scenes are incomprehensible.
Yeah,
they are horrible and just not choreographed well. Yeah. Jared,
hey,
yeah,
I am here.
Let's talk about the elves and how every single elf has short hair.
Aside from one. There's one.
Gilgalad, he's the only one.
Yeah, the elf leader, I don't remember.
He's the only one with long hair. And when they asked them, hey, how come your elves don't have long hair at the Comic-Con panel, their response was, not all elves look the same, which is a lie, because all of their elves look the same except for the one that has long hair.
Yeah.
Literally every single other elf character has the same haircut of short, it's like modern.
They do have a couple with buzzed hair.
Oh, that just the black one. But he's in a different part of the story. He's a different kind of elf. I forget the name for him.
But yeah, you're right. It looks absolutely ridiculous. And my wife just kept saying they don't look like Tolkien elves. They look like Christmas elves.
Wait, there were elves? I just saw humans. Exactly. They didn't look like elves.
That was another thing too. It's not just their hair. Oh, and by the way, the one elf that did have long hair, it was just kind of like blah. It wasn't like, the elves in the original series, like Elrond had like two little strands coming down the side. It was like elegant and like smooth.
Gilgalad looks awful. He looks and he's
bad.
The only, and it's a shame because he's the only one with long hair, and he is by far my least favorite costume.
Right, but hair aside, a lot of the elves, I think, just in their face didn't look like elves either, because especially it was the what was the one what do they call it?
Elrond?
The tax, not the
Celebrimbor.
No, in the second episode, I wrote it down here.
One of the soldiers?
The Watch Warden. The Watch Warden dwarf.
Oh, yeah.
Or elf guy.
He looked like a human.
He looked like a human. His face was so old and wrinkly. It's like elves are supposed to look young and youthful and ageless. Mm-hmm. And so many of them, this guy was the worst offender, had wrinkles on their faces and the short hair and distinguished facial features. I'm like, these don't look like elves. I'm sorry, they don't look like elves. And
so a few of them, in spite of having shorter hair, looked, had fair, facial features and everything.
Yeah,
sure. But
honestly, I think of all the elven characters, surprisingly, my favorite one was Elrond. I wasn't as offended by his performance as I thought I was going to be. But like going into it, I'm like, this is not Hugo Weaving. But I thought his performance felt the most elf-like in parts. Yeah. But then you had other scenes where he was talking. He had CW dialogue when he was talking to Galadriel.
Yeah, so. I guess I can see what you mean in the way that he delivered the lines. He was more
he was more regal.
He was more regal,
which is funny because I guess his character is not royalty, and that's going to be like a plot line or something.
Yeah,
but he's this
because it's only elf lords are allowed.
But he's the speech writer for Gilgalad.
Yeah.
Gilgalad's speech I hated. It showed a wide shot of him because he's talking up these soldiers to send them off to Valinor, and there's like 15 people in the audience. Like it's open air, there's a bunch of trees, but it's a small gathering.
Yeah.
And Gil-galad is projecting like he's doing a stage play. And I'm like, it just felt so off. It sounded like he should have been on the top of a tower yelling down to a flood of subjects. The way that he was giving that speech.
Yeah.
I wasn't loving Elrond, and I think it really is not necessarily that it's not Hugo Weaving.
Yeah.
But he's one that he felt less like I had a harder time connecting him to Elrond than I had her to Galadriel, even though her obviously she's being a warrior, which Galadriel never was, and there's all that. But like, you know, she kind of looked like she had her comportment.
Like
it worked for me. Okay,
I started liking him more in episode 2. Like the way that he was talking to the dwarves, I was like, he's kind of elf-like.
I think you're right.
The thing that it threw me so much for a loop, the fact that not only does he not have the long hair like Elrond does, but okay, maybe this is hundreds of years before. Sure, he has time to grow out his hair, but his hair was also black in the original, like really dark.
Yeah,
and it's very not. And it's like
it's very blonde.
I don't.
It's fine. The hair color doesn't bother me as much, but
since Mark is wanting my take on it, I'll just give you hey, it was a fun little fantasy show.
Yeah.
Like,
thumbs up or thumbs down. General thoughts.
It's hard to say because again, I can watch it and just be like, hey, this was a fun fantasy thing that was just like, nothing's impressing me yet so far in a way where I'm like, oh, this was really cool that I liked this.
Yeah,
but it also wasn't so offensive for me because in a lot of ways, I'm not so tied to some of the lore things.
Yeah. If you take
the CGI was better than we expected out of coming from the trailers. All the CGI and everything looked pretty good. The performance.
If you take Tolkien's name off of it, it's not that offensive.
Not bad. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. That's my problem. Yeah. It's a fine looking fantasy show. It just doesn't feel like Lord of the Rings to me.
But to all your guys' point of like, oh, they're going to say it's successful no matter what because they spent so much freaking money on it. Because they spent so much freaking money on this, not only getting the rights they only have little sections of the rights, but then that they put so much money into making this actually look good. And again, they made it look good. That it's like it has to, like they feel they need to have the IP to say, oh, it'll be successful. We'll drive a lot off of the fact that it's Lord of the Rings. And I think we've been seeing a lot of properties lately that are showing that even though that's been the traditional mindset of you have to have IP and that's what's going to make you successful. And there's still some of that. There's a lot of things that don't have IP, that don't have a recognizable name, and yet they're still successful, Yeah. So
even then though, I have a hard time saying it looked good. Because of there were some scenes that looked good and it was like 50-50 for me. I was like, ooh, that's a nice shot. Like the shot where they show Sauron like in his castle or wherever with a bunch of, I'm like, this looks good. And there was that brief shot of like Nazgul fighting
the eagles.
And
that was a cool shot.
There are some gorgeous stills. And
was it a Nazgul or was it a straight up dragon?
No, it looked like a Nazgul.
Either way, it doesn't matter.
Fighting the eagle.
Yeah. Like there were some really good looking shots, but then like the point I said earlier, like you have these cosplayers walking through the shots that just completely ruin it for me. And I really want to shout out a YouTuber called Lana Marie. She's a costume design. It's a small channel. I'm going to share. Show on stream.
Yeah, keep holding on to that bag of rocks there, Mark. I'm sure there'll be plenty.
I really want to shout out this YouTuber. She's done a couple videos on the Rings of Power costumes. I highly recommend them. I would love it if you came on our show, by the way. And and I was trying to like tag her, but it wasn't working. So I'm gonna try it again later. But she makes a great point in regard to the costumes. Can you guys hear this?
When you look at Lord of the Rings.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to play a quick segment. Yeah.
When you look at Lord of the Rings, which we'll be doing a lot for comparison, you see that the costumes don't look like costumes.
Look at that elegant
What
hair.
I mean by this.
Yeah.
Oh,
Man, he's sexy. Hugo Weaving does things.
For comparison, you see that the costumes don't look like costumes. What I mean by this is that when an outfit is worn by a particular character of a particular race in Middle-earth in a particular environment, that outfit fits into the context, into the environment, into the scene. It blends in seamlessly. Let's look at elves. In their
I'm not watch. Her videos are great, but like that's the difference. Like when I'm watching Rings of Power, I see costumes, and when I'm watching Lord of the Rings, I see clothing. I see. I don't see the clothing because I see the people.
Yeah. Do we have a link for this actual video? Yeah. Can we put it in the chat?
I've already linked it in the description in this video because I knew I was going to share it. I was trying to like tag her channel and it wasn't working.
Is that just looking at original Lord of the Rings, or does it bring up and contrast with Rings of Power?
It does contrast.
It does? Okay. Yeah, because there's several things I've seen. Some of the promotional images. I think we've talked on it briefly, but some of the armor that people are wearing.
Yeah. When you go to Rings of Power, it's like
those don't look. They don't look.
They look
warm.
nice. They look nice, but they look like costumes.
Yeah.
And this is the one you're talking about.
Yeah, that's the one. That has a scale armor on like some spandex sleeve.
There are other problems too. Like, the first problem is you have a breastplate
with scale mail
that has rigid scales glued onto it, which that doesn't make sense. If you have a breastplate, you have a breastplate. If you have the whole point of scale mail is that it's flexible. So it's already a contradiction. And then you look at her arm and she's wearing printed spandex underneath. So
and it's just appalling. And the same thing with go back to that
I think of my favorite though, I do think the elves, the dwarven costumes look the coolest, but they still look like costumes to me. Like these ones.
Yeah,
this is a really zoomed in shot.
The Harfoots, because that's kind of their bag, is they look all worn and whatever.
Oh yeah,
it's not as natural looking as you might would want from and what you get from the previous stuff, but it does look less like polished. Look at how pretty this is.
The Harfoots are the one exception where it looks like they've worn their clothes. The problem with the Harfoots though is that it's vomit salad. Like there is so much, there's so many things into their hair and in their clothing that you can't focus on the character because you're like, what am I even looking at?
Yeah, and I don't get it too, because they put like sticks and twigs and like flower crowns and stuff that it's obviously intentional because they like weaved a little head thing, but then they just like stick it in there haphazardly with weeds and all mess managed
because they want to make them look.
What is the purpose of that? Like you obviously put that in your hair intentionally. It doesn't like just get stuck in there and you left it there. But like, is that a look you're going for?
I think it was going along with that they're good at hiding. And so they always have things woven.
They're trying to make it look more,
which
one
is stupid, but it's an explanation.
It just looks
one of the other
bad.
things. I saw an interview done with the girl that plays Nori, the main Harfoot we've been following.
Which I liked her acting,
is that the interview where she said her character's goal is to subvert Harfoot tradition?
No, it was a much more
what was that? What was the
low key kind of thing. It's on Collider. Collider's a channel that I used to follow a lot, and I just watched some of the short interviews now. Perry Nemiroff on Collider does a lot of good.
Is she still with him? She's one of the few they haven't fired.
Yeah, because she was an actual writer with them for their actual website.
Yeah.
And she does great interviews. And she's also good at being very positive in spite of all things. Anyway, one of the things she asked was like, "Oh, is there like a thing about the costumes that somebody might not notice?" And the lady mentions like, "Oh, they apparently put like, I don't remember what it was, like apple seeds or something like that they wear as like indications of people that they've lost. And so the older people will have it. And it's one of those things where I heard that before watching the show, and I was trying to watch for it because I'm like, hey, that's actually a cool concept. You can see that they've come up with a cool idea. I couldn't pick out what they were talking about because there was so much other stuff going on with their hair and with their costumes.
I remember the interview that you're talking about, and they were using it to say, hey, look at all the attention to detail that we're including in the show. Like, we have a lore behind the acorns. The problem is they couldn't explain why like they chose to do that and how that serves the story. Like, that's not what attention to detail means. Like, you can come up with as many ridiculous facts that have nothing to do with Tolkien as you want. That's not attention to detail. That's you just writing your own thing. The attention to detail is while writing the story saying, oh, hey, this character's saying this thing doesn't make sense because Tolkien said in 5 letters back this, so maybe change this line. That's what attention to detail means.
I don't necessarily mind that, but again,
I wanted to point out that
just,
that Mark had his bag of rocks ready for you, but your opinion is good today.
So already addressed that comment.
Yeah, I already tossed out that, like, I'll save it because I'm sure there'll be other ones that you'll be ready to use them for.
This is interesting though. The beasts fighting the eagles looked like foul beasts. It was really quick, and my brain said Nazgul because that's obviously what they were trying to evoke, right? But I don't think Nazgul were invented until the Third Age either, right?
Maybe, but there's lots.
Either way, it's not accurate.
That's why dragons also maybe made more sense to me, although I don't know enough about the lore to know when dragons came around. And that was where my brain went, and it actually had me go, like, wait a second, are there actually dragons? And then I was like, oh yeah, of course there are dragons, like real dragons, not Nazgul. But it had me take a double take because I was like, what? Why is it a dragon? It should be like a Nazgul, but yeah.
Yeah, like in army, you'd have like stuff woven into your helmets. That's
yeah.
Sorry, I didn't show that comment for very
I guess
long.
it makes sense in that context, and I did like that scene where they were popping out of their hidey holes. I thought
it was weird though because the hunters, first off, why do they have giant antlers strapped to their backs? It seems very impractical.
I think those are actually part of them.
No,
I think there's supposed to be some sort of a creature that has.
That's what I thought from the trailers, but
that
then
makes
being
no
hunters
sense.
made sense that they killed that creature.
They were late. Yeah, they were labeled. We're hunters. What is there to hunt? So like from the trailer, I thought it was going to be like some weird creature, and there was going to be an explanation, and there was going to be a point to them. But it's literally just, hey, let's have these zany guys walk by that look weird, and people will be like, "What's that?" And it served nothing. They've got these giant antlers on their back, and then the line is, if they're Harfoots, you better watch out because they're known to be dangerous.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, that line
first off, people didn't know anything about Harfoots because they didn't do anything remarkable until the Third Age when they became hobbits. And second off, if anyone knew anything about them, it wouldn't be that they were dangerous.
Yeah. And the line could have been like, hey, there's been sightings of weird creatures amongst the trees in this area, so we better be careful, or something like that, you know? That makes sense. But yeah, they're going.
Yeah, if they were hiding,
I thought that I'd seen some sort of interview or something like that mentioned that was actually a part of their, like, there's some weird creature.
Speculation, but like,
yeah, could be. Yeah,
but
I can't
even
find
then,
anything
like,
on it right now.
If it was part of their body, it would be facing the wrong way. Like, that's not how antlers have ever worked in nature.
Yeah,
strapped to their back.
They were facing forward. I mean, it's weird that they're on their back, but yeah.
I thought they were facing forward. I thought they were facing backward.
I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure they were. They were using them as like backpacks. It's just weird.
Yeah.
See, again, we can speculate on it as much as we want, but the problem is the show didn't.
Right.
It didn't explain what these stupid things were.
They were just a throwaway line.
Yeah, it wasn't the point of the show at that point. Which, I can get behind that. It's one of those things where, like, I've noticed there's definitely a tendency of, like, if overall you like something, you'll be like, oh, that was adding depth to the world because there's these other creatures that maybe something interesting to dive into, but because we dislike it, we're like, well, what the heck was the point of that? So, I mean, I'm trying to avoid jumping down that direction, and so that's why I'm saying it didn't bother me. I agree with you where it's like it doesn't make sense. It's one of those things that it would be kind of cool to get an explanation. It might be nice to know what's going on, but it was not the point of it. So I'm okay with it just being like, oh, okay,
sure. Yeah, it's not a hill I'd die on. I didn't like it. Let's talk about like the 10 seconds of the Cimmerillion that we got. The intro that goes so fast. Like it starts off with Galadriel was bullied as a kid, which that's not very elvish. Okay. Galadriel was bullied as a kid, and her brother said something to her that we can't tell you right now because it'll come up later. And then it goes into like 2 minutes of the entire first stage of hey, some people got mad and some people died, and now we're here, and nobody believes me that Sauron's alive.
Yeah.
Like that still of the red city with like people floating in the air or water. It's unclear. Like that, they use that heavily in the promotional material of like, you're going to see some crazy stuff, and it turns out that you saw it in the trailer. That's what you like. There's no explanation to what it is. She could have said what it was when the city was drowned, or like I don't know the Silmarillion as well as I should, but like I don't know what was happening in.
Yeah, it was very quick, which that's fine. That's not what the story's about. You did get another.
But if you're going to show me something on screen that's more interesting than the story, like at least like give me a throwaway line explaining what the heck it was.
Yeah,
that's I think agree. Where the difference comes in is when it ends up being more interesting. Like your question about that ends up being more interesting than the story that you're actually following. Then you're like, what the heck?
Because what story are we following? What is the story? It's
a little jumbled at this point.
There's no there's no bad guy yet, other than we think it's Sauron.
Like, I mean, we also know that it's Sauron, but yeah,
but there is no current threat. We don't know what, and we're 2 hours in. And we don't have a threat. We don't have we don't have any drive. We just have a bunch of random characters doing like 3 things.
Honestly, the most interesting was the story with the South folk or whatever. With they've got something tunneling up underneath them
with Black Olas.
Yeah.
Yes.
And more of the fact that
I genuinely don't remember his name or the girl's name. Because they were so but like their characters were so uninteresting. But you're right. I think that is the most
Bronwyn or something like that.
Bronwyn. Okay, that sounds familiar. But then she's got a boy too, who's like an angsty teen for some reason. I will say yes. Their plot is probably the most interesting. It's also the one that's spent the least time on.
Yeah,
and their characters are the least interesting. Like in episode 2. You get like 30 seconds of their plot. It's, hey, there's a town. Hey, it's on fire. I'm going to jump down a hole. Hey, no one believes me that the town's... Oh, I hate that. Like
that was an odd way
we get sinkholes and entire towns disappearing all the time. Oh, yuck. Like, maybe send someone to check. And she doesn't even try and retort with, but it was also on fire. And there were no bodies.
Presumably she said that before, but I don't know. I did like that it cut to her like thunking the head on the thing, being like,
"It was
shut the heck up."
I knew that was like as soon as they said we're not going to believe you. I'm like, well, she's going to come back and plop an orc on there. I'm like, it was so cliche, and she's the only person who's done anything in the show. She's the only one who's killed an orc so far. Is this?
Galadriel killed a cave troll, but
she's a healer,
a snow troll.
Is that what it is?
Snow troll, yeah.
Okay. I can't talk about the snow troll yet because the fight scene with Bronwyn and the orc is so bad.
Yeah.
her 6-year-old little boy who weighs maybe 50 pounds runs up and hangs the orc and lifts him off the ground in full armor.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you not know physics? I bet you they were thinking, oh,
the orc looked a little thin.
I guarantee you they thought, oh, it's a pulley system. That means you can lift more weight.
With multiple pulleys, yeah.
It's not how math works. It was so dumb. The little boy was hanging the orc. And then
it didn't work though. It failed pretty darn quick
until he cuts the rope, or I think he pushes him away or something. But it literally was working.
Yeah, and that's not the only time in the show that physics just goes out the window.
It's
a fantasy show.
Apothecaries have to be able to lift an orc body. It's in the job description.
Of course.
Sorry, David, you just said a point, and I didn't hear it because I was thinking. What did you say?
I said it's not the only point in this in these 2 hours, these two shows that physics goes out the window.
Oh yeah,
and we'll get to that later. But yeah, you're right. But I was also thinking too. We know that canonically, elves are lighter on their feet. They physically weigh less.
I don't think that's actually canon in Tolkien. I think that was a Peter Jackson thing.
It's more implied. I'm not giving the showrunners enough credit for. I'm not giving them the benefit of doubt for knowing that tidbit of thing. It looked ridiculous, and it shouldn't have worked.
But it wasn't an elf. It was a little boy and an orc.
I know. I'm saying maybe the similar thing is
maybe orcs weigh less.
Maybe they evolved
full battle gear.
He's saying what he would do to give them credit if he was going to give them credit,
right?
But he's not.
Yeah,
so
I don't give extra.
No,
credit.
it didn't. I was playing devil's advocate. It didn't make sense, and it was laughably ridiculous. I was laughing. Turning to my wife, just left him up. That's ridiculous.
That is a good segue to the ice troll, and we are jumping around here, but because those are the only two action scenes, right? I guess there's the sea monster as well. Aside from the ridiculous physics, it was so choppy. There's so many edits, troll? So many cuts in general in Bronwyn's fight. But then in the ice troll, it was so choppy you can't tell what's going on. And of course Galadriel fights it entirely by herself. It shows the ice troll banging up like 6 guys, and they're completely worthless. And
Galadriel comes in
and then Galadriel jumps on a
spider
sword.
monkeys all over it.
Yeah, that was an odd thing, running up the sword.
What's silly is if you actually look at
cool.
It didn't though, because if you look at it, she jumps, and then her sword teleports to the other side of her body, and then she does like a backward slice, like in midair, and then she lands, and the sword's like in a different place again. Like the choreography is awful. And then after she does that thing, she turns her back to the ice troll like 6 times so that she can do spins.
Yeah.
And is like super cocky and just fights it like
spinning is a good trick.
It's offensive to me that you made Galadriel a warrior in general. Okay, like she wasn't a sword fighter. Okay, she never wore armor and did all this fighting, let alone was a commander of armies. So that's already offensive to me that she's the commander of this army. But if that's what you're going to go for, don't you want to show that she's a good commander?
Well, I think they thought they were doing that.
Don't you want to
Because
show
they
that
show her
she's
dominating.
capable of leading a team and that they fight it as a team? Like, go watch the Fellowship of the Ring when they fight the cave troll and they're working together and it's this huge threat and they bring down the cave troll and it's this great action sequence. And then you have
And
Galadriel
Frodo
going,
almost dies.
Speed,
He would have
I'm
died
gonna
if it were not for the meat.
stab you in the head with my knife. I'm so confident. I've never been scared in my entire life. Like,
Yeah, it was pretty laughably ridiculous. But also, you know, before that, she's not listening to her team at all. She's just giving the orders like we're going on this witch hunt, and she's not. I mean, forget whether or not she's right or not. A commander needs to listen to their men and talk to them and work with them.
Yeah,
But
or at least like give a good explanation.
We're going to go through this.
Yeah,
you listen to me because I'm in charge.
Yeah,
and that's bad leadership.
The problem is she's not going to learn her lesson because she is right. We all know she's right. Sauron is alive. So she's never going to have to there's never going to be a reckoning where she has to say, oh, I was a bad leader. It's going to be, I was right the whole time and men are stupid.
It doesn't matter. She's right. She still needs to be a good leader and listen to her.
She's not a good leader. She can't command people into battle. She does it all herself and she's insufferable. And at the very least, like on your point of listening to the men, you don't have to give in to them. You can say but you have to be understanding. And she should have given a speech saying, look, I understand you're frustrated, but we were charged with this responsibility, and being here is proof that there's still work to be done. And so we have to put our own desires, we have to put duty above our own desires. Like, and she does nothing. She just says, I've given my order and you're going to obey. That's not.
I think the only problem with what you're saying there, though, is that the story that they're telling is that she is even going above and beyond what the orders are like. She can't say, "Oh no, it sucks that we're having to do this," but duty comes before our personal desires, because duty is telling her
that's not the story they're trying to tell. Like
they're trying to tell that she is so focused on this to the disregard of everything else, including the elf Lord King, whatever.
I understand that they're not trying to tell that story. They're trying to say that she was. And my point is that that's a bad story to tell.
And I would say that I agree with you at the very least that they don't have her showing actually good leadership skills, because even if it was the case that she's disregarding them, she should do a better job working with her team.
And the problem was in that later scene where there's a reckoning, the way that it was framed was not. It was not to point out that, hey, in the future you're going to have to recognize that you did something wrong. It was framed in the way that Gil-galad is a big dummy and he should have listened to you, because we already know the outcome. We already know that she's going to end up being right. So she's literally never going to have to learn a lesson.
That is a good point, that they're not going to have it be a thing where she needs to learn a lesson at all.
But they played Gil-galad off as the arrogant leader who's ignoring the big threat. And which is stupid, because they're giving Gil-galad's role to Galadriel. He's the one that did this. Like, as soon as he heard that Sauron was alive in the books, he led the armies to fight against him. The second he knew that Sauron was still alive.
And not knowing the specifics of that, I think the difference though being is that within the context of the show, I didn't feel like they were showing him as being a big dummy. It was one of those more the I guess it would be like it would be dramatic irony. I don't know, where we as an audience know that his decision is not based on reality, or is not going to actually be right. But they did show that by the perception of everyone in the world at this point, it is safe. So to me, it wasn't he's a big dummy. It's more of a he's looking at what he sees and is just calling it as he sees it, and is actually relatively correctly assessing that there's not a threat anymore. And Galadriel is being a little
be interpreted
irrational in her no, he's got, and it will turn out that she's right. And so I agree with your point of she's not going to learn a lesson about the fact that she was kind of being irrational because she was right in the end. But I don't know.
I agree. It could be interpreted that way. But I didn't read it that way. And it's also the exact same thing they did to Wheel of Time with Lord Agilmar,
And I haven't seen Wheel of Time yet. I need to
It's
catch
the
up on that.
exact same
read the
thing
book,
they
so.
did to his character. They made him an arrogant ruler who was ignoring the threats. So
Yeah.
I've seen it before, and so
That's fair.
it could be that my bias is misinforming me into misreading the situation, but I think it's a pattern.
and it doesn't change the fact that, like, to your point, like, it doesn't change the fact that in the end it still kind of comes out to, he's going to be shown to be wrong and she's going to be shown to be right, which again is fine, but just the way that they play it and the way that they bring it forward. So, I don't know.
And you're right, Jared. It could end up being that way. They did. Gil-galad did admit at the end of the second episode that he knows that Sauron is still alive, but he thought that her going after him would somehow make it worse or something.
I might have missed that bit. I was trying to finish some things up while I was watching it, so I wasn't sitting and paying as close of attention. So I might have missed that line, but
it still comes off as an arrogant leader, because that doesn't make any sense. Why you would blatantly ignore a threat that you know to be real.
Jacob Ironside sent me a little dragon comparison.
Smaug is a little boy.
Really cool. Yeah, thanks, Jacob. I need to make you like a moderator or something, but to do that, I would need to figure out how to do that.
Nice.
That's big. Okay, cool. The problem is I don't know when any of these other dragons happen in Lord of the Rings.
Smaug was supposed to be the last dragon, right?
Yeah. Cool. So none of these look like the size of thing that was fighting the eagles is the issue, which means that they're either Nazgul or, like you said, Jacob, foul beasts. None of which existed in the first age.
Yep.
Although I would be curious, because I don't know what size a Nazgul is compared to these, because I would have guessed it to be close. Well,
you saw you saw in Lord of the Rings movies, Nazgul were kind of the same size as eagles, because you both had humans riding them, but Smaug was significantly bigger than all of those. He's the smallest of them, it looks like. But it was a 5-second scene that we saw. And of all of the canon that they're breaking, this feels like a weird horse to die on, or heel to die on. It feels like a weird dragon to die on.
Yeah, weird horse to die.
Yeah. But there are just so many other things to complain.
So can we talk about the setup of the show? Because we've mentioned Gil-galad not believing that this threat is real, and So the lead up, we talked about the intro where it sums up the Silmarillion, and now there's Sauron or whatever. But
only about
it doesn't.
There were a couple things from the Silmarillion. Like it doesn't even. It does not sum up the Silmarillion.
Yeah.
Basically, the only thing they got right is that there used to be trees that gave off light, and then and then there wasn't.
Yeah. And the old evil lord, I forgot his name. Morgoth or something.
Morgoth.
Yeah, Morgoth. Anyways, but no, so when it's talking about Sauron, right? And it says specifically that his influence was widening, and he had these orcs that were swarming the land, and they were just like infesting everything and taking over everything. And then all of a sudden it cuts to and they fought, and then it killed
Galadriel's brother,
and then all of a sudden Sauron is like gone. Like, where are all the orcs that were all over the land? Like, I don't understand how it went from he's fighting, he's there, he's taking over everything. There's orcs swarming all over the place, and now we're going on this hunt to find Sauron because he killed her brother. Like, I thought he was all over the place. I thought he was taking over. Where was this transition from him being this big reckoning force and being gone? There was no transition. It was,
if I understand correctly, the way it's supposed to happen is once Morgoth is defeated, Sauron kind of runs away, and then he might have still fought for a little bit, but I'm pretty sure that's when he goes into hiding. And
it was definitely not very well laid out.
He doesn't come back until the second age as a different is a shapeshifter. He comes back as a different person. We definitely haven't already seen him on the show. if we have seen it on the show, it's definitely not how it happens in the books. But
I was wondering, are you talking? I assume you're talking about the stranger, or I guess that's what they're referring to him as.
I think he's probably
it's Halbrand,
the sea feller. Yeah, Halbrand, the
Oh,
guy in the
yeah,
ocean that Galadriel meets. I think that's Sauron.
That makes sense. That would make sense.
Yeah.
Because they want Galadriel to have a romance with him, which is why her husband doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Yet?
They were married in the first age, and they stayed together the whole time.
Yeah.
The husband that shows up in the Fellowship of the Ring, and he says, and he says, Gandalf, tell me, where is he? I don't know if it's a hard C or a soft C.
Celeborn.
It's either I think it's Celeborn.
It's very similar to Celebrimbor, the other.
Yeah, you just made me think. Wait, that guy? Oh, but yeah.
I know how it's spelled. It's Celeborn or Celeborn, but Celeborn sounds cooler. But it also sounds a lot like Celebrimbor. But then you get Sauron and Saruman, which I frequently say.
Eowyn and Arwen.
Eowyn and Arwen. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, I think Mark is right, though, that Comic Guy is probably going to turn out to be Gandalf.
That's an interesting theory you've got there.
Which I don't know enough about the lore to know what it should or shouldn't be, but I bet you that's what it's supposed to be.
Okay.
I've got a hot take about that.
Which is going to be why he loves hobbits, because he was first found and cared for by a Harfoot, which is basically just a hobbit that they can use to get around.
It's Gandalf. It's Gandalf. It's either Gandalf or they're trying to play a fast one on you, and it's actually Saruman. But
that's what I was going to say.
And that's also possible.
It's Gandalf.
Yeah. The other one that I'd heard somebody maybe suggest was that it was Radagast the Brown, just because he has that kind of crazy personality. But
so here's what we know. Whoever it is, it's canon breaking because they don't show up until the Third Age. But aside from that, it's one of the Maiar. More specifically, the Astari, which are the wizards that were sent down not until the Third Age to fight against Sauron, and that includes Sauron the White, Gandalf the Gray, Radagast the Brown, and the two blue wizards that show up in Numenor. No, they don't do anything. I can't remember. The blue wizard. I'm pretty sure the blue wizards hang out in Numenor, and then you never really hear from them again.
Yeah, I think there's at least one or two more, isn't there?
It could have been a different place, not Numenor.
And then there's green. Yeah.
No, there's just five. There's five.
Oh, there's just five. I thought there was seven.
No, there's five Astari, and they're sent down to fight against to help against the fight to help in the fight against Sauron, but they're not allowed to interfere directly. Their role is to inspire other people to fight against Sauron. So in the past, the Maiar are basically the angels.
Yeah.
Right. Roughly. Don't hate me. Like, I know it's a little different. I could spend a lot more time explaining it, but I wouldn't do a good job. They're angels. Okay. The angels sent by the god guy whose name is long. And I can't remember.
It's an interesting name. Long.
I'm not a Tolkien expert, okay, but I've been doing a lot of research. Okay, so the Maiar are the angels, and previously they'd been doing the fight against Morgoth, but then once in the Third Age, the god decided to do like a different approach and just send the Astari, which it was just the group of five Maiar, and a different tactic, inspire people to do the fight for them instead of fighting on their behalf, right? Which is what you see Gandalf doing, right? He whispers into ears and inspires people. So the reason why we know it's one of the Astari is because the memory loss. That's the big clue. They were sent down, and their memory of heaven was erased, and so that's what you're seeing. That's why he can't talk. He doesn't know anything, and he was like pointing at the stars. And he does that little constellation thing. He's one of the Astari. Either that, or they're really breaking canon, and he's going to be one of the Balrogs, which was a Maiar that was corrupted by Morgoth.
Yeah,
it's the same as Saruman. Saruman used to be one of the Maiar and fallen angel, basically. That's the trope. And some of them were turned into Balrogs. One of them was Sauron, and That's basically how it works. But the memory loss is clearly pointing to one of the Astari. They're obviously making parallels to Gandalf. They might do a switch and say it's Saruman instead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because he started off good.
Yeah,
Martina's
Saruman
making
would be
jokes.
good. Yeah,
He kills all the
He kills the bugs though. That was dark,
which
literally because the light bugs died.
But also a clear homage to the moth thing whispering to them.
That was the.
But also, their lanterns are made with fireflies, which are very bright for any firefly I've ever seen. And when he breaks it open,
there are a freaking ton of fireflies in that
2,000 fireflies. It's not like a handful.
Whoa.
How on earth do they gather that many fireflies for one lantern?
Yeah.
And we see hundreds of these lanterns. That is insane.
Maybe each lantern is like an ant farm. You know, they just have a queen lightning bug and a couple workers, and they just multiply in there, and they just live in the lantern.
No,
could be. Yeah.
Once again, this is the credit we would give them if we were willing to give them credit.
Exactly.
So, small other note that somebody pointed out. Somebody was mentioning about how Sauron was going for a sail or whatever, and that's why we were thinking it's him. It made me think about when it first started out and Galadriel was being bullied and she puts the little boat in the water and they're like, you really think that's going to float? And she's like, it's not going to float. It's sailing. And I was like, no, that's not sailing. And then it opens up and I'm like, okay, now it at least is kind of maybe sailing, but no, that's not a thing. Come on,
you cannot sail without
you
also floating.
Yeah, but that was my thoughts too. I'm like, there's no sail on that boat, and then it opened up.
Like,
that's kind of cool.
Okay, I mean, it looks cool. That was fine, but like, it makes that it's still that line is still kind of like,
what? Yeah. It made me laugh.
The dialogue is so cheesy. It's
the dialogue is really bad. Can we talk about the dialogue? Okay,
the dialogue is like I'm 14 and I'm deep.
Exactly.
You know, like it thinks that it's like, if you have love, then you're never really in the darkness, and you're like, oh, kill me now, please.
Like one of those inspirational posters posted up on the dentist's office.
Yeah, like, oh, you can't. It's just.
But also, you know that line that we were making fun of in the trailer, that you have not seen what I have seen, and she just repeats the same thing.
And everyone was saying that's probably not going to show up in the show. That's they probably just wrote that for the trailer. Oh yeah, people defending that line were like, "Come on, that's clearly a line that was just written for the trailer. It's not going to show up in the show," and it shows up in the show verbatim.
And not only that, we assumed, because how the trailer was cut, that she had some sort of vision of some like disaster. But
she hasn't seen anything.
What has she seen that Elrond hasn't seen? She's been through everything.
It's in her heart, David.
Is she talking about the symbol? Because Elrond saw that too on her brother.
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. He literally
has seen everything she's seen.
And the other line that was between them two that didn't make any sense is she said, "Without my sword, what am I to be?" And his answer to that is, "What you have always been. My friend." That doesn't answer the question.
It doesn't make sense.
She's asking an existential question about who am I? You don't answer that with, "Oh, you're my friend." That doesn't answer how you are. That answers your relationship with someone else. That has nothing to do with who you are as a person. That line makes no sense. It was written by a 12-year-old. It's stupid. It doesn't make sense. And that's sort of
I'm really glad though that they told us that those characters were friends, because I didn't know until that line.
Yeah.
Because they don't act like friends.
Yeah.
Show don't tell, boys. But they literally had like, remember, as we both know, we are friends.
Yeah.
Oh, another thing that I kind of shook my head at. I don't know if you watched at the end of the second episode, it was like, "Oh, here, watch the coming up next week," and it showed a clip from
from this week.
Coming up next week, it showed something from the episode 2.
Yes,
where it's like, let's go. And he's like, okay, I'm ready, mother. Like,
it
that literally was like 5 seconds
from
ago.
episode 2.
From like a minute before.
Yes, it
like,
ended with the shot that the episode ended with. That's not what we're going to see next week.
That's what we already saw. No, we will see it because it'll be in the recap next week.
Yeah,
Oh.
they just
I'm
took
stupid.
the recap from last
I
week
was wrong.
and just put it in this week.
Exactly.
And they're like, "This is what." No.
And then the following week they'll say it's in there again, and they'll just keep putting it in the recap.
That's hilarious. I didn't stick around that long.
Last time
As soon as
you
the
saw
credits,
this
I'm like, okay,
scene.
done.
Next time you'll see it again because
You'll
it'll be in the
because
last
let's
time.
talk about the fact that you saw it last scene.
This next
man.
time on last time.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Another line specifically that comes to mind that was cheesy and stupid is the black elf, right? He goes and tells is talking to the woman or whatever, and she's like, just say what you need to say, and he says, I've said everything I need to say in everything except
without
words.
saying it.
Without
It's
words,
like,
yeah.
what? I've said everything I need to say in every way but words.
Yeah. No, these showrunners have literally
Come
never
on.
they've literally never heard the term show don't tell because they are telling you everything. The
Mm.
only
Yeah.
time they do exposition well is with the stranger because he can't speak.
Mhm.
He
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
the reveal with the star constellation was good. It was interesting. I don't know specifically what it means yet, but like that was actually
I was
cool.
wondering if Gandalf
Yeah.
has a symbol that we associate with him that looked like, but I wasn't sure.
Um
Yeah, I don't know.
Before we move on from how stupid Galadriel is, though, in the opening scene where she's she has to climb an ice wall because
Climbing
people
the
liked
ice,
Game
yeah.
of Thrones, right? And of course, she's the first one to the top, and all these men are useless. She's a horrible leader.
He also punches through like 10 inches of ice
She-
and rock with her
Yeah,
fist.
yeah, I'm getting there, David.
Oh, sorry.
But she says, we are searching for the last stronghold of Sauron that no one has been able to find. And then they say she leaves one of her men in the snow to die, right? And they say, we have to turn back. We should have been here already. And
They say,
then
"We
the
are
reveal,
here."
we
And then
already
they
are here.
No.
How did they know that they were supposed to be there already if they're searching for a place that has never been found before?
Yeah. And then not only that, but they're like, oh, this symbol on this thing was evidence that
Sauron was here.
In Sauron's
Recently.
secret
yeah.
hideout.
In the
You know?
place where we know Sauron was. Like, yeah, finding the
Mhm.
symbol doesn't prove anything. Finding the hidden room that she punches through and then says, and now you guys do the rest of the work. Right?
Finish
Like, well,
thing,
why
yeah.
just keep punching if you're this capable? Like,
Hmm.
but oh, it's so dumb.
Yeah.
But then they were like, but what did discovering that room do? What was and why was it hidden? If no one could find the stronghold,
Mhm.
why would you need to hide the room? And there was nothing in the room that they didn't already know. So why hide the room? They literally just said, hey,
Yeah.
this is Sauron's symbol. It tells them nothing because they know Sauron was there. It doesn't confirm that he's still alive.
I mean,
And because
maybe
the guy
they could
even says
revisit
this
the
could
place,
be
but-
thousands and thousands of years old. This is not proof that he's still alive.
To me, what it ends up doing is it lends to the idea of Galadriel is just irrationally focused on this. So I think that the show is actually showing us that Galadriel is irrationally focused on this because you see that where he's like,
but
this could have been here for
she's
so
not
long.
irrational about
Yeah.
it though. Like we know she's right.
She's right, but she's irrational because she is not basing her actions on anything else that's going on. So she is
Yeah.
doing this without
it's-
any real evidence, even
And
though
it's
it turns
making her
out that
look
she will be right.
Stupid. It's making
weird.
her really unlikable.
It's weird because it's to me, she's at least for that storyline, our main protagonist. So we want to identify with her and believe her. And we also know that she is also right, but they are also doing so much to show that she has this conviction with no like evidence, and that she is doing so like she is following this irrationally, even though it'll turn out that she is right. So it is a really weird thing. I'm not quite as angry as you guys are about it, but it's weird because it is unclear what their purpose
also
is. What
another one of the lines that one of the elves says to her is, why would we look here? Like the sun doesn't even rise here. How long can living flesh endure where sunlight fears to tread? Referring to orcs that hate sunlight.
Yes. And
why wasn't this the first place?
Location.
Why wasn't this the first place they looked?
I thought they were referring to themselves being living flesh.
No, she was saying no. They've got to be here. The orcs are still alive. Like, it would be impossible for orcs to live here because there's no sun.
Yeah.
Since when has that been a requirement for? Yeah.
What?
It's the opposite.
Maybe they don't understand orcs very well yet. I don't know.
Oh, because the Orc-hai in the Third Age, they can go out in the sun, so they must have always been able to go out in the sun, right?
And then the place is so evil that the torches don't give off heat, and then the anvil is so hot because Sauron touched it that it can't stop being hot. So when you pour water on it, it freezes.
Yeah.
Again, physics.
Is it a burning cold? Like maybe more like
I don't know.
It wasn't clear. Yeah.
They could have explained it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just silly. And there was an orc like in the wall, fused to the wall.
Yeah.
I think that they're gonna try. I think the intention for that was that they're gonna try to explain that had something to do with weird. They were trying to do extra power things because that the dialogue that they had after that had made me think about how Sauron was trying to create things like he was trying to create the ring and this, that, and the other, and that it was a side effect of doing some dark magic.
SG brings up the point that dwarves also hate the sunlight, which is why it's weird that there's a black dwarf.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
yep.
You think they're going to revisit that location in the show?
Okay. Is that actually you chatting right now?
That's David.
I don't know who this Debenster is.
I just always thought it was funny when it's like you say something and then you say it in the chat. I'm like, what?
Oh wow, yeah, chat's agreeing with me here. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
I thought it was Martina at first, and then she shows up later, and I'm like, wait, what?
I'm supposed to be spurring organic conversation.
Your screen name is D.A. Bentster.
Okay. Chat doesn't know. Okay, never mind.
Sorry to have ruined the surprise, chat. I guess you didn't know.
I think it's been spoiled a long time ago.
Well, I mean, it's like spoiling the fact that who's this that Martina girl? Oh wait, it's your wife.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then like
not to mention half the time when we've tried to recruit people from like our Discord server when it was the Star Wars shows, they know you as D.A. Benster anyway.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, continue.
Anyways,
so then the elves just commit mutiny and don't get punished for it.
Well, it's because it's her that's actually mutinying against the elf Lord King.
Yeah.
And then she's not being punished because she's done great things in the past. It's explained, but it's a little bit wonky. I don't know.
And then, so to get her out of the way, he gives her the gift of sending her back to the Undying Lands, which
is continents away.
It is a thing that they were still doing back then. They could come and go freely from Valinor and the Undying Lands because they were not yet separated from Middle Earth.
I thought that was
because that doesn't happen until after the fall of Numenor, which we haven't seen yet.
Gotcha.
Also, his reasoning is she's keeping Sauron alive by hunting for him?
Yeah, that didn't make sense.
That is so dumb.
I think it was more that if she goes and hunts for him, she'll stir him up or something.
If she keeps hunting for evil, then that will make evil.
Yeah, it didn't make sense.
Yeah. I mostly agree with that. Although maybe it's supposed to be kind of like the whole Batman Joker. The like, when you have a good guy hero that spurs people
Yeah,
to be
sure.
bad guy.
Yeah, that would make sense
supervillains.
if that were something that Tolkien wrote.
Yeah, once again, I'm doing that. What credit I would give if we were actually going to give them credit. So yeah, I don't know.
You don't have to, Jared. You don't have to.
But I do, because I'm the guy who likes everything. So
Yeah.
Could
I was that
Batwoman
guy
be better
once.
than Rings of Prime? I have not watched Batwoman. I've literally only watched Az versus Babyface rant about Batwoman because that's entertaining.
Are we talking about the Batwoman show that was on CW, or are we talking about the Batman, the Batgirl, whatever movie that was canceled?
Batgirl was the movie. Batwoman is the show, and I'm not going to touch Batwoman with a 10-foot pole.
I watched the first season of it. It was fine, but that's also coming from me. So take that with your giant bag of rocks. Rock salt. Sorry, rock salt. There we go.
So
then Gladriel hops on a ship, sails an entire ocean,
got the right
sails
response,
it thousands of miles away into the middle of the ocean,
and then jumps off
into a place that was forbidden for anyone else to sail, and jumps off into the ocean. She's dead. She is 100% dead. But fortunately, she found a raft from some other ship after she swam probably like 1,000 miles back towards Middle Earth.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty bad. I mean, this isn't just like, a small ocean.
No,
a small sea. This is a different continent. They sailed to a different continent.
Yeah.
And she just decides to jump ship and swim back.
And especially since they've already shown that Valinor is magically separated from Middle Earth, which should not be the case. But if that is the case in the show, there's even more reason for there not to be any ships anywhere near where she jumps off.
Yeah.
Maybe that was just the place where the ceiling is, but it's still a long ways from Valinor.
She should have jumped off a lot sooner.
Yeah.
I guess that, and then they would like turn back for her. So she had to jump off at the last minute, so that they couldn't stop her as they were going in. And what was the line that her brother said? Rocks have eyes and they look at darkness, and if you have a reflection on the sky, you can tell the difference between stars and reflections by swimming.
That's a good Spark Notes version of his quote. Yeah.
I genuinely have no idea what he was trying to say because it was so convoluted. It's basically the scene that you hate, David, from The Amazing Spider-Man, when they try and say with great power comes great responsibility, but they don't want to say it again, and so they word salad it. And the thing with the thing about great is that if you have it, responsibility is like a side dish, right? That's like I don't know what he was trying to say here.
Yeah. It was weird too because I'd forgotten, like, because he had his whole spiel about like the rock sinks and the ship floats because it can see the sky or whatever. And she's looking up at the light,
buoyancy.
And then she jumped off. Yeah, and she jumped off the ship, so she's being a rock. And I forgot about her whole thing about the.
It's already established that Galadriel doesn't know what floating means, so I guess it makes sense.
Jacob, by the way, has actually the real solution for how we can overcome things is we need to start looking at this as if it has the same attitude as Robin Hood Men in Tights, which is a complete farce comedy. So that is what this is supposed to be.
I like this explanation much better. It was the Tempest Insider that she used as jet propulsion to get.
Yeah, it was absolutely ridiculous. And so now we're in the second episode territory. Once she finds this, the survivors on the ship or whatever.
This is the worst segment of the show.
It feels like she doesn't care about them at all. She abandons them to die with this sea monster,
which was weird, but also of course she doesn't care about them. She's
She also
Yeah,
like
She
it
kind
just
of is
doesn't-
hating humans because they had something to do with being a part of Sauron's. I don't know. It was
Yeah.
weird.
It also just she doesn't like talk like anyone would talk. Like she goes up and she's lost in the sea and she jumps onto the raft and immediately grabs the water and starts drinking it. She doesn't even try and like make a case like, "Hey, please save me. I'll be nice."
Yeah.
And then they see that she's an elf and one of the ladies says, "You lied to us." And I'm like, she didn't say anything. She didn't have any dialogue. How did she lie to you? Like all she said was, "I was separated from my ship, and I'm an elf. That means what?"
Mm-hmm.
And then they push her off into the ocean, and she doesn't say like, "Hey, I'll." She like doesn't even make a case. She just accepts. Okay, I'll just die, I guess.
Yeah, but then the sea monster comes and she's like, "Okay, well, forget these guys." And she just starts swimming away again.
But the sea monster shows up wearing a boat hat.
Yeah.
So
I guess
monsters has a boat hat. It shows up and it's only interested in destroying the boat, not eating the people. Jared, you're still muted, by the way. We can't hear you. And then after it destroys the boat, it leaves without eating the people.
Yeah, or going after the other two people that are still on the partial boat. It doesn't make any sense. And then what follows after that
unropes himself from the bigger part of the boat so that it will kill the boat. And I guess that means that he'll just stop.
Yeah.
And not kill the rest of the boat when it's clearly established that's all it cares about doing. Like, yeah, the insult was knife ears. You dumb elf knife ear. What? They also apparently all muted, of the Hobbit. Jared, you're still muted. All of the hobbits also have Harfoots. The Harfoots all have pointy ears too.
Yeah, they're more roundy with the point, but yeah,
they're a bit different. I was gonna say, are you sure he wasn't trying to say nice ears and a really mean? No, I don't know. I know. I was just
knife ears.
Yes.
Why would bullying be part of Galadriel's backstory?
Because they're trying to ground the elves to make them more relatable, but the elves are supposed to be.
They're supposed to be mythical
and regal. Like you can. So her backstory should have been something like you have a big responsibility to live up to, and why can't you act the part of such and such and such, or you need to stop with this childish boat making games, and
or maybe feeling lonely because she's a princess and there's nobody that gets to be friends with her because she's a I don't know, something like that.
And then Pennywise shows up and says, "You'll float too. You'll float too."
Yeah.
At least you'd learn something about buoyancy.
Yeah. So then what needs to happen?
But Martina brings up that the physics in this scene are awful too. She ties herself to the mast, which I didn't get on the first viewing. She ties herself to the mast, says, "Tie yourself to me," and then disappears. And then I genuinely did not understand what was happening in the scene until I rewatched it. But the mast snaps off with her attached to it. I call it a mast.
Pulled down by some sort of a winch thing.
I call it a mast, but it's really just a stick. It's not very big, and there was like a winch connected to it, which apparently is enough to pull her down.
Which I think that's the thing that's weird to me too, is because it would be generally, I've heard it's a good thing to tie yourself down to the ship if you're in rough waters.
But Galadriel doesn't know that.
Yeah. But then it backfired on her somehow, and then he watches the entire rope disappear into the water, and then jumps in and pulls himself down to her. But while it's still sinking, and then unties her, and they
in water, the water carries a lot of your mass, right? So you can lift a lot in water that you can't lift in the air, right? So
humans float, wood floats.
Yes, I think all of this stuff
I
all
think
this
it
stuff
implied
was
that the
already
little
on the
winch
raft.
thing was metallic, though, and so that's what was pulling her down.
But even so, if
It would-
like, why was it part of their raft? Why did they leave that as part of their raft if it's not something that floats? That's
You got to look
wanna
pretty.
get
You
rid
got to
of.
slick back the hair to look pretty.
Yeah, with
But-
seawater.
So notwithstanding that everything on the raft should have been floating in the first place, and she shouldn't have been sinking that fast. And even if she was, he could have definitely pulled up the rope
From the boat.
there because
Yeah.
she doesn't weigh as much. She's also an elf, which we've talked about. They may or may not weigh less than regular humans, so he should be able to pull up her weight along with whatever the floating. The thing that should be floating that's actually sinking by himself, but instead he climbs down the rope in the water upside down, and it's just like it doesn't make any sense.
It was bizarre.
They don't understand physics. This is the third thing we've talked about. With
I think that the physics of that could make sense, because if the thing was attached to a bigger, like the whole boat where it has more wood, it can support it, but once it's just attached to the one, it can, and then. Except for the fact that he should have just pulled her up. Once you're underwater, pulling yourself down like that, climbing down, sure, it's bizarre, but yeah, I don't know. I didn't necessarily mind the physics of that, just the logic and the bizarre happenstance of
And
that.
the editing is so choppy, you can't tell what's going on.
It didn't stand out to me as much because, like I said, I was doing a little bit of working around the kitchen trying to get stuff done before we had to leave, so I could actually see it in time.
But they had to work in the shot where
yeah.
she's being like crucified though.
Yeah.
And you get the light shining down and she's tied to the mast. And
as you describe it, I'm like, I felt like that was more because of the way I was watching it, but no, you're right. That's literally just how it was presented.
I am surprised though, and I've got to give him credit for letting a man save her.
Yeah, it's true.
Right.
I was surprised that they allowed that.
He's not a man; he's a Meyer. So
he's a
Sauron. Yeah,
he's a male Sauron.
Yep, he identifies as a male.
Because you don't know, Sauron is supposed to present himself as I believe an elf called Anatar, bringer of gifts, and he teaches them how to build the rings of power.
Yes,
and they've heavily implied that that's not going to be the case, that Celebrimbor is going to come up with the idea of building the rings of power, which is stupid.
Celebrimbor forged them with Sauron, who was in disguise.
Celebrimbor was Sauron's student, and he's the reason everyone is still alive, because he forged the 3 elven rings in secret, and that's why the elves weren't corrupted
together.
His pronouns are "moi" because he's evil. That's hilarious.
I do also think it's the Judas got goat barbecue. Interesting little point there too. Just letting people play with her hair, but she won't let other people touch it in later on. Yeah.
Again,
she's regal. She's supposed to be cool and not.
That's an issue with this show. I don't know why they get the hair wrong of all the characters in the show. The elves' hair don't look like elven hair. The Harfoots look terrible. We've already talked about. And we haven't yet talked about the dwarves.
We haven't even talked about Disa's hair.
They swore up and down that dwarven women had hair, right?
Beards.
They had a couple pubic hairs,
little teeny sideburns.
I couldn't see it.
They had it.
It was just one little shot.
It was peach fuzz. You couldn't see it. That was the
pubic hair peach fuzz. It didn't even connect. It was just kind of like a little thing down here.
There were a couple of shots. There were a couple of shots where she turned and you could see the light hitting off of it. And that's why it was like, oh, there is a little bit of facial hair. And
I really hope that that's not what they were saying when they had their little thing at
that they spent hours putting on each individual hair.
I really hope that's not it, because guess
what? That's it. Because they already showed. They already showed some
has that on on their face.
They showed other female dwarves too. It's not just Disa. They were
I know that's what I was kind of hoping for, is that somehow they'd be like, well, she doesn't really have much because for whatever reason we don't want her to. Black. But then other people we do want. We will put it on other people, and
12-year-old boy beards. Yeah. Yeah, it's pathetic.
But to your point, in The Hobbit, we saw other female dwarves with
and they had big.
It seemed like they had more mutton chops, and it's like, okay, cool, that's fine.
And that's fine. And there's a way you could have beautiful beards with, inladen with jewels and beads and stuff and braided. That would be so awesome to see a female dwarf with like this bearded braid with jewels in it.
Yeah.
Well,
I may or may not have asked an artificial intelligence to make some pictures of female dwarves, and they have incredible beards.
Nice.
Are you planning on sharing with the class?
I'm planning on making like a video out of it.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Little teaser there for you.
I'll find one.
Leave them wanting more.
I'll share one with you. I'll share one with you. But go on. I'll find it.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. I'm not even so attached to it that it has to be, because honestly, when I watched the original Lord of the Rings movies, not knowing much from the rest of the lore, because I have read the books a couple of times, but not a ton. I'm again not a big Tolkien person. I don't remember anything explicitly saying that they do have beards. And the one scene in the original Lord of the Rings where Gimli's saying, it's hard to tell dwarven men and women apart, and Aragorn says it's the beards. I thought he was saying it's the fact that the men have beards and the women don't have beards. But hearing from everybody else that, like, yes, they're supposed to have beards, I'm like, yeah, then why are they not? What is going on here? And especially when you do have, even though it's a quick shot,
they're
the Hobbit,
lying
where they do
to
have
you.
beards.
They're saying, "Oh no, we definitely did it."
Yeah,
Like,
I wouldn't be surprised
if you're not going to do it, own up to it and say, "Well, it's because we wanted them to be beautiful and brave."
Which,
but they're lying to our faces.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing. I'm living in California, and I'm surrounded by a lot of people who have kind of alternative type lifestyles and things like that. My wife loves like Queer Eye and things like that. And it makes me think about this idea of presenting whatever you want to present and being able to do it so masculine, but you can present very, very beautiful or whatever. I look at one of the guys from Queer Eye he's got the long, gorgeous hair and a big beard or whatever, and he's very effeminate, and it's like, see, that's cool. You can be whatever you want and have a beard that is beautiful looking. And so it's like, why can't they do that with these women if they're wanting to show this idea of progressive, like, hey, people can show what they want to show, then show somebody doing that, because I think that would appease the people who are looking for something like that, and then it would end up still working for people like us who maybe aren't necessarily worried about that. I don't know.
I think what happened, I would not be surprised if this comes out and leaks somehow. I would not be surprised if they made the entire show and didn't have any facial hair on the female dwarves, and then they saw the online backlash and they're like, oh crap,
in post.
They're supposed to have, and they did it in post, and then they come up with this big story about, oh yeah, we put them one by one, and they just said that because they had no idea how it was going to look in post. They just said, hey, we need some facial hair on this dwarf, get some on there. Hey, that's cool. Hey. I like that.
Yeah, there's a little bit of
yeah, it didn't quite get the nose right.
Well, there's a little bit of like it messed up on the upper lip, but that's courtesy of the artificial intelligence.
It's AI. It's not.
It doesn't like take a. It's crazy how it does it, but it literally like paints like pixel by pixel. So you get a couple artifacts like this little weird lip, but that looks awesome. So cool.
Yeah.
And it looks beautiful and effeminate in all the right ways, and like
she looks very feminine.
I like how the eyebrows come down too.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Look at that. That's freaking awesome. That's like that one Asian character, whatever. I can't remember.
I don't know.
Yeah, there are a couple of real good ones. This is my favorite though.
I look forward to seeing that dedicated video because that's cool.
Yeah, that'll be good.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah,
I'll get to it eventually. Yeah. I've had a busy couple weeks. I have a new baby. I keep coming up with ideas and I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this and this and this. I'm like, oh, that's going to take like
what kind of
3 days of editing. That? I'll get to it eventually.
Yeah,
says the guy with no kids to the guys with like 4 kids each or whatever.
Yeah. So on a positive note, I think the mines looked really good.
Yeah, they look fantastic.
Going back to the sets, the CGI on the environments look really good.
Gorgeous.
And the
sounds like they're back over there in they're back over there in New Zealand, which I haven't been following enough to know that they'd been over there, but yeah, looked great. Yeah,
that's what's funny is like I'm really bad at Twitter, but I'm trying to be on it. All of the people defending the show on Twitter, that's all they can say. All they're doing is posting the screenshots that look gorgeous. I'm like, oh, but it looks so good, and I'm like,
yeah,
but it's still bad.
That's
Like,
not
they,
the thing
I'll
that
even-
we're complaining about.
I'll even go as far as to say one of the complaints that a lot of people were having, and including you going in, was watching the trailers and going like, "Ooh, look at some of that CGI." And hey, for the most part, it's been pretty good.
yeah, the CGI is
better.
fine.
You know, they've finished it out, they've finalized it, whatever. It's so a little bit of a like, hey, we thought it was looking terrible, and now this one thing that we thought was looking terrible is actually turning out not bad. Yeah, at least for the most part.
Yeah, it was really good. And I might say the environments, not only do they look good, but they look Tolkien-esque, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
I think all the environments, it looks great.
Yeah,
That's the one positive from the show.
I was chatting with a friend, and I think besides the setting, so I was describing my feelings to him, and he agreed with me. And he's a big Lord of the Rings and like all the like Silmarillion and all that. Although he hasn't been caught up in listening to what all's going on, so he's still giving a lot of fair chance. Was that, you know, hey, the show was fine. Nothing stands out to make me love it, but it was a fine adventure fantasy thing. But also nothing makes me feel very Lord of the Ringsy, except maybe that some of the settings, some of the look did feel a little Lord of the Ringsy.
Yeah.
But beyond that, it's just kind of like, oh, you're fantasy. Yep.
Yeah.
There was one of the environments that I did not like.
Okay.
And it was episode 1, I believe, when she first returns home. There are some shots that look great, and then there's one scene where they're in a forest, and it's too much. Like like there were a bunch of there were like way too many flowers, like all on the forest floor, and it was like so cluttered that I'm like, yeah, someone needed to say like, okay, hold on, pause just a little bit.
It is the elves that do tend to go overboard with things like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
It's fine. Like it still looked gorgeous, but it took me out a little bit. Like, okay, pump the brake a little bit.
Yeah.
Jacob sent me a picture of what Celebrimbor is supposed to look like. As this.
That's what he.
That's what he actually looks like. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's not right. There we go.
There we go. That should probably be him. Yep.
I make a joke.
I don't get why they
That's so freaking cool. Come on,
this is
that's
one
cool.
of those things. Honestly, like as nonsensical as it is, what you were saying with the reasons that you think that they don't have the beards on whatever her name is. I don't get why. Like I have heard no even half stupid explanation as to why they've decided that the elves aren't going to have long hair. Just because they don't all look the same doesn't mean that you can't still have them with very different looking long hair.
They addressed that at the Comic-Con panel. They were asked
even
that question.
Couple with short hair, but like so many of them.
Stephen Colbert, Tolkien fan, asked them, "Hey, how come the elves have short hair?" And the response was, "Well, this is a long time ago, and not all elves look the same." That's just completely avoiding the question.
That's 100% the sort of thing where it's like, we had another reason for doing it, but this is the explanation we're going to give, and it feels like it's one of those things where we're like, oh, we didn't want to mess with the character, like the actors didn't want to mess with it or this, and then I'm like, that was not that it was. I could not imagine that they were like, so when we're making this, how are we going to show that this was so long ago? I know the elves will have short hair now. No, like that,
because
like,
it takes a really long time for their hair to grow.
They're dumb, but they're not that dumb. Like I cannot believe that that's their thought process behind it. I think that it's got to be something else that they're like, we don't want to for whatever reason. And honestly, I mostly feel like it's a wig. Just have somebody put on a wig and deal with it. Like that's part of the character. Like the Harfoots have to wear this messed up hair. You have to wear long hair. The dwarves have to wear a big nose and beards. Just that's part of what you do to make yourself look like an elf.
The dwarven men, by the way, looked really good.
Yeah. Honestly, I will even say I did not mind the Legolas, or the black elf guy. I thought he looked great, even with his short hair. I think you could have been cool with some cool long hair, but I think he looked great.
I think
if you
that's
had
fine
one or
because
two
it's a
that do something
different elven
different,
faction. Yeah. It's a different elven faction that have the buzzed heads.
and
Okay,
he
that's
had a
fine. You can
very
still see the
ethereal, like
ears.
elvish look. I thought he looked great.
It also kind of made practical sense because they were the warriors.
Yes.
So it was like a military look.
I didn't have a problem with the buzzed hair elves as much.
It's not my preference, but it wasn't as bad.
Shaggy hair.
But it was fine. But it was all these ones that have the medium length hair, like, Alan and myself.
It was this scene,
it completely
right
covers the ears
that I was talking about.
Gotcha.
It's just like
that is a lot of ground flowers.
It's just a little too much, guys. Like
I still say it's very elvish, but I definitely see where you're coming from.
I get
you're
the
right.
theme, but like
it's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. It's not too much for me, but it's
so much that like you
own.
don't see the characters anymore because you're. It's like, and then it's. I mean, it still looks pretty. I just.
Yeah. I don't know.
It's a little subtlety there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you might be right, Jacob. It might be laziness because it takes them less time to put on a shorter wig or whatever. Yeah. And I think I do think that's a dumb excuse because this is the kind of show where you put in the time and effort.
Exactly. I mean, they spent millions of dollars on this, and it shows in the CGI and the backgrounds. Why didn't it come through in the costume?
And it shows in the fact that their costumes look nice, but they shouldn't look nice. They shouldn't look like costumes. They're
right.
Yeah.
So,
but again, it was a long time ago.
Another one thing that I did like that I surprised myself that I liked. I liked the interaction between the main Harfoot girl and the elder Harfoot.
Alan was getting his own bag of rocks ready for you, David.
Sorry, we were just talking about the dwarves, and I thought you were about to say the rom-com dialogue between Disa and Durin. Because oh boy, that was okay. But go on.
I have words about that.
Harfoots
but before we go back into negatives, I really surprised myself at liking the interaction specifically with the main Harfoot girl. I forget her name, and the Harfoot elder
Nori.
Nori and the Harfoot elder. I think the Harfoot elder doesn't look too bad. His character.
I think her name is Hobo Baggins.
Hobo Baggins. Yeah, but her interaction with him, he's kind of Brandyfoot, or no, that's never mind.
Brandyfoot's Nori's last name, I think.
Yeah, he's reading the tomes or whatever and studying the stars, and he's like, this is weird. The skies are trying to tell us something, and then she just pokes her head up and is like, what are you doing about it? It's like nothing. I don't know. I like that interaction. That was kind of classic Tolkien-esque Hobbit, shenanigans. Trying to.
But they're not hobbits, David. Come on, they shouldn't be doing that. I'm just kidding.
That was the one point.
Who?
The elder.
Nori pops up.
Nori pops up. There's a scene where he's like studying the book and he's like looking at the stars and saying, "Oh, there's something wrong with the stars. They're strange. The skies are strange." Line was dumb, but strange. But
strange.
I didn't like that line, but I like that he was,
Also, his character looks so ridiculous.
I don't know. I thought he was fine.
He looks so stupid.
I think he's the best looking of the Harfoots.
I tend to agree with you there. I think.
But anyways, I like that interaction. I thought it was playful and it was fine, and it was just the right amount of humor. But going back to that other scene that my brother thought I was talking about. When Elrond is meeting up with the dwarves in the mine, it plays out like a terrible sitcom comedy.
Oh my gosh!
It felt like
none of it is Tolkien-esque.
It felt like the writers are,
If you have love, then you're never in the dark.
It felt like they knew that there was this awkward humor between Legolas and Gimli in the original. So like, oh, let's do that. There's got to be some awkward conversations and stuff, and it just the elf dwarf plays out
conflict.
So he's
so comically stupid.
He's pissy because he didn't show up for his wedding, and did he invite him to the wedding? And I don't. It never says.
Wasn't, yeah, right.
Yeah,
but also to know that he's a wedding.
Dwarves don't live as long as elves, but they also live.
They live like 200 years.
They live a lot longer than humans.
Yeah.
So of all the characters,
20 years was not a lifetime.
20 years. It shouldn't have been a dwarf character.
So they should have made it like 50 years or 100 years or something like that. They should have made it a little bit longer than that. I did think that was a little bit weird.
That was silly and it was dumb. But then it even gets even more ridiculous when he brings it back to his home and the dwarven kids are like have the helmets on and they're smacking into each other. It's just like this is stupid. Like who's writing this? The dialogue was so unnatural.
I didn't mind the quick shot of the kids. I didn't mind the quick shot of the kids running into each other. It kind of humanized them, but the dialogue is what I didn't like.
Yeah, the whole dialogue in that scene where he's taking them through their home and the kids are playing in the background and Disa is like, "Oh yeah, he's staying." "Oh no, he's not." It's just it felt like they were trying to mimic Legolas and Gimli's relationship, and they didn't know what made that relationship so amazing and dynamic, and they failed at mimicking it. You know what I mean?
Disa's look is just so ridiculous and out of place. You know who she reminds me of? I'm going to pull up a picture.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm looking at that, and I have no defense for it in any way, shape, or form. It didn't bother me as much, but it wasn't great. But yeah, to me, it was just definitely one of those things. I actually almost wonder if it was more going for the kind of inter dwarf banter that you had going on in the Hobbit movies. Especially like I don't know, I haven't watched those in a long time, but when they're around Bilbo's place and they're kind of just doing their goofing and this and that and the other.
Yeah,
I wonder if they were going for that. I can get that it's, maybe not wasn't hitting right for you for that, and not that it hit great for me. Just maybe they were going for that.
I know. I can see what they're going for. It just didn't land with me. It just felt too forced and inorganic. That whole scene. So
Matt, Mark,
thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us. Yep. See you next time.
Every time, hold on, listen to this joke though. Every time I see Disa's character, I think of Lando Malari from Babylon 5.
Wow.
Who is a fantastic character, by the way. I'm only a couple episodes in, and I had to stop because I want to start reviewing the show, but there just hasn't been time, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. Super good show, Babylon 5, man. But this character, his look is intentionally ridiculous because he's an alien species and they have weird culture. It's actually very charming how it works in Babylon 5, but like it's supposed to be this just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's meant to be over
he's
the
a
top.
stooge. Yeah, he's played as the stooge in the show. So
now cut. Oh, I was gonna say show another shot of her because I haven't been willing to put in the effort to really memorize,
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen Babylon 5, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
it has been on my watch list for a long time, but I opted to go rewatch the entire original Star Trek series.
It's mostly just her hair that makes me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's
I
just
see it.
so
I see
silly.
It's not hitting me as hard, but I definitely see
it's
it. Yep.
so big.
Mm-hmm. Not to get too far off of this unless we are actually done with it, but I finally did. Took me way longer than it should have, but I finally finished the Orville, and oh my gosh, it's so freaking good!
You finished it!
Wow!
We
oh
can
my
talk
gosh,
about
those
that
last
in a
3 or
bit.
4 episodes. Oh, we can keep talking about that later.
There's still more things I want to talk about. Wheel of Time.
Yeah. Okay.
Wheel of Time. Wow.
I don't want to keep
Rings of
keeping
Power.
Yeah.
So, so going back to the Harfoots and this mysterious stranger that falls from the sky, which not Gandalf, which it's Gandalf, right?
It's either Gandalf or Sauron. Saruman.
But
I think they might switch and do Saruman. That's also giving these showrunners a lot of credit that they haven't earned.
Maybe it's Fandalf and he dies and then Gandalf comes down later. It's just some other unknown, but it's
either
the
way,
same thing as Gandalf.
It's not canon.
It's Gandalf.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Full of my wife's comment right here talking about Disa, the dwarf.
Oh,
she makes extensions from shaving her beard. That's why her hair's
that makes sense.
That's what
she
it is.
shaves the beard and puts it all up top. So episode 2 starts, I believe, with Nori getting this Gandalf character in this wheelbarrow cart.
And when she falls into the pit, she mentions that the fire isn't hot.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they could be trying to say he's one of the Balrogs because we're sneaky, even though it still would be stupid and not make sense.
Yes.
But they're clearly giving an homage to, like, they're clearly implying that it's a starry because of the memory loss. So like, and then Balrogs don't look like that. So it's
well, I mean, they're related to the Maiar are all but anyways, they start with that ridiculous wheelbarrow trope, carting this big human across the thing, and when they leave her alone, when they leave the cart alone and they pull out and they show that thing, I'm like, the cart's gonna roll away, they're gonna do that stupid trope, and sure enough, they did the stupid trope, and I was like, oh, gosh, it's so stupid. It's written by a 13-year-old.
And then her dad's putting up a tent, and breaks his leg. The size of the pole he was like struggling to put up could have been done without any pulleys, with one person. It wasn't a giant log.
And this is in comparison to him. This is literally
yes.
But that's the thing is, even for him, because you could see the comparison of him literally holding it, and how tall it is compared to him.
It's like a little branch.
Yeah.
Like,
I
and then
think
his
it's about
leg snaps
compared to him
in
about
half.
this big round.
And I'm like, but they had pulleys and levers like set up on this. They were like cranking to get this teeny stick.
Again, they don't
because
understand.
It also has like the awning.
It could have
thing
been
on
a really dramatic
it.
scene. It could have been a good scene if it was a giant tree.
What should have happened? Yeah, it should have been bigger, but it also the pulley should have snapped, or the rope should have snapped, or whatever. The log slipped, and he slipped down, and then the log fell on his leg.
Boom.
That would have been better.
I think the only reason they didn't do that is because they were trying to do more of the parallel between the guy, the stranger drawing stuff, and then when he snaps his thing is when that snaps to maybe make you think there's some sort of weird dark magic-y thing going on, maybe.
Okay,
I don't know.
Then snap the log that he's trying to put up. You know, that would be like, what the heck? The log snapped? You know, I don't know. It's weird. But then
he would be able to hike, I guess, for the migration. I don't know.
Yeah. So there's one more point that I want to bring up with this not Gandalf and you know, the original Lord of the Rings were a technological masterpiece.
Incredible.
Especially the stuff that they did with forced perspective to make Gandalf look so much taller than these hobbits was just mind-boggling and amazing. If none of you have seen behind the scenes shots on some how they made some of the stuff, like
with them interacting with Gandalf.
Yeah, Gandalf sitting in the
forced perspective.
Forced perspective was so good.
Like, I've seen the behind the scenes footage, and I still don't understand how they did it.
Like, I understand technically how it works, but it's just like, it's mind-boggling how effective it is.
Because you have a scene where Gandalf hands his staff to Bilbo, and Bilbo picks it up, and then he hands him a cup across the table. And you're like,
across from each other.
Earth are you doing this?
It's
and there is zero CGI. Well, in the staff scene, there is CGI that covers the switch. It's all done in camera,
it's
mostly.
So good, it's flawless. There's
Martina's comments good.
You don't understand, and neither did the showrunner. It's very apparent that the showrunners didn't learn a thing from any of the technological stuff that they did to make this forced perspective work. There's one scene in particular where you have this not Gandalf character. He's in the back. He's behind everyone else. And then you have Nori, and she's just like down here. And then you have the other Harfoot that's in the foreground. And it's blatantly obvious that this character that plays not Gandalf is on stilts.
Yeah.
Just like behind them. His legs are like 2/3 of his body. And it's so I had to pause it, and I'm like, do you see this? I pointed to my wife. I'm like, his legs are more than half of his body length right here. He's obviously on stilts. They didn't do anything to make him look bigger other than just being up here and they're down here.
And you can do that with compositing and
send me that.
Like, if you don't want to do forced,
send me that timestamp or screenshot.
Yeah,
because
I'll see
at
if I can look it up.
At that point, I was literally falling asleep, and I can't do this. It's so bad.
I missed a lot of, like, I wasn't watching for that. Because as I try to think back on those scenes between not Gandalf and the Nori or whatever her name was, I don't remember noticing any difference between oh, this is a human tall, and except for when they were literally talking about it because his feet are sticking out or whatever. It never stood out to me. Again, I wasn't like watching as close. The only scene that I actually noticed any difference between the racial sizes was when Elrond and Durin are standing on the lift and going up, and Durin's like looking up at him, and it looked odd to me because he looked a little too small to be him, but to be right. But that was the only time I noticed any racial size difference.
In the scene where they're breaking rocks together, you can't even tell that they're different sizes.
Yeah. Which, again, to your point of how well they did that in the original Lord of the Rings movies, I believe that oh shoot, I had his name. The guy who played Gimli is the tallest person. In the
he is in the crew. Super tall.
Yeah. Sala, whatever his name is. But yeah, that's just and they do a good job of, while they do show him being short, they don't make him just small like that's what they do with the hobbits. John Rhys Davies. Yep. They make him short, so he shows up as stockier and this, that, and the other. So he doesn't look like he is smaller. He just looks shorter. And they did that really well in the originals, but not in this one. Yeah.
I'm trying to scrub through the second episode and find it, but I'm not.
You don't have to bring it up right now.
Yeah.
He's 6'1".
Yeah.
Ian McKellen is 5. Ian McKellen's 5'11". Oh, I guess Christopher Lee is 6'5".
Okay. Yep.
But he's never in a scene. He's never in a scene with.
I missed your guys' episode. I haven't got back up watching it, but where you guys were loving on the Lord of the Rings in general. But I just love hearing about the story with Peter Jackson and Christopher Lee when they're talking about Saruman getting stabbed in the back, and he's Peter Jackson is telling him, so yeah, he gets stabbed in the back and make it or whatever, and Christopher Lee looks at him and says, "Do you know what it sounds like when a man is stabbed?"
Because I do.
And then Peter Jackson's like, "Cool. You do your thing."
You do you.
It was so good. I've seen some interviews of that. Oh, I love it. Christopher Lee is just a freaking so cool. Anyway, sorry. Small diversion there.
Yeah, no, he's when you get stabbed in the back, you can't. All you can do is suck in it. You're like, and that's what he does, and it's so good. Yeah, Peter Jackson was trying to get him to scream or yell, and he's like,
or at least make a more audible gasp. But yeah. But I love just that Peter Jackson was just like, cool, I don't want to see you down a dark alley. He knows that Christopher Lee is not one to mess with.
He fought in a war, so
was likely basically actually James Bond.
He was the only person in the cast who had met Tolkien. And Tolkien, it was actually in the contracts that if there was ever an adaptation of his films, Christopher Lee would play Gandalf.
Oh, really?
Yes, but it took so long for any of that to happen. By the time it got there, Christopher Lee is like, Gandalf feels wrong for me. I want to do Sauron instead. And
oh boy,
perfect choice because he is evil.
He is a great evil. Oh goodness.
Yeah,
I think I found it.
Dooku and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, share it if you want to. I'm trying to think. There's another point I had about these silly Harfoots. Oh yeah, it was a super weird choice in episode 1 to bring in the wolves and then not have anything happen with them. Yeah. They're obviously going to come back later because we've seen the shot where Gandalf is doing magic. Not Gandalf is doing magic on the wolves, but they literally go out of their way to not have any tension in the first 2 hours of your show. There's wolves, and then they all make it back fine. I was just
nope.
I don't know what you're doing. They don't know what they're doing. Those brows were made to be an evil wizard. Christopher Lee, absolute legend, that man.
Okay, yeah. I'm trying to share my screen, but I forgot that Disney Plus disallowed screenshots.
It's tough. I use Firefox when I screen grab. So I think we've covered everything. Galadriel's story was too, but Galadriel shows up on Numenor. She's gonna be introduced to the Queen Muriel. I think it's funny because there were several kings and queens of Numenor, and I think 3 of them were women, and the one character that they chose to be the Queen of Numenor in this show is the one character who was never the Queen of Numenor. She was supposed to be, and she got subverted. Someone else took control. Like
why?
Literally,
what?
You could have literally just chosen any other queen.
They just want this to be an alternate universe, I guess. I don't know. It's hard to have tension in a safe space.
Yeah, the Harfoots, nothing happens with those, and then Elrond. Yeah, we covered that, and then Blackalus goes down a hole. That's it.
But he's not done with yet.
He goes down a hole. And when she says, "Hey, don't go down that hole," because there's something bad on the other end, obviously, and he says, "That's why I have to go down the hole." And you're like, okay, that seems like a weird plan. And then his plan was to just go down the hole and not have a plan and get captured.
Yeah, I did. So one more thing I did like is the little man baby boy. Was complaining about rats underneath his his floorboards, and it was like, okay, that was a nice foreshadowing of the orcs tunneling through.
But he's got.
So then there were rats running along with them and running away from the orcs, and
but he has Sauron's sword because it's got Sauron's mark on it.
Yeah,
and it turns into a blade if you bleed into it. I guess that's cool.
Yep.
So.
Yeah.
It's just so not good, and I might enjoy it more if it didn't have Tolkien's name on it.
Yeah,
I'd still have these very basic like plotting problems with the show, but I wouldn't hate it as much as I do if it was just generic fantasy, because that's literally what it is. Like in 2 hours of the show, there is like 2 things they pulled from Tolkien that are actually accurate.
And then like 15 things that they pulled inaccurately
on purpose and changed.
On purpose, yeah. And then the rest of it's just made up. There's just like
even Disa.
It's like fine, make some things up, but God.
Even Disa, the character they're pulling from is called Dis. Like they changed the name too. Yeah, there was a female dwarf called Dis, but she wasn't Durin's wife. But it's just silly.
And so here's actually another odd thing that maybe I'm just unaware of the lore on this, but Durin's talking to his dad towards the very end, right?
It's Mithril.
Oh, is it Mithril? Okay, because I was wondering if it was
what else. What else would be in the box?
Well, so my other thought was it the heart of Khazad-dûm or whatever, but then I'm like, but wait, it was Durin that actually uncovered that when he was actually king, not when he was prince. So I was hoping they weren't going to go there. So and then I realized it could be Mithril, but I was like, I wonder.
Durin's bane is the Balrog, so which doesn't happen until later. It's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I tried to get a screenshot in Microsoft Edge too, and that hides it. So I don't have Firefox installed on the machine, but I'll send you the timestamp
under the hood now. Edge is basically just Chrome under the hood now.
That's a really good point. It's hard to have tension. It's hard to have tension in a safe space.
I literally read that out like 3 minutes ago.
Sorry,
That's okay. I'm just giving you a bad time.
Yeah. I heard it, but I didn't hear it. I didn't.
But it's a good one. So it merits being mentioned twice, or 3 times, something like that.
Like, you can't have tension in a world where you're afraid of stepping on everyone's toes. Like, you can't have that. Like, storytelling exists because people stepped on each other's toes and because there was conflict, and now you have all these stories where you're retroactively changing history so as to not be offensive, which there are several stories from Bad Takes. But let's move on to Bad Takes. How about we do that? Because I'm getting ahead of myself. Here we go. We got it's a stinger.
Screen rants. Bad takes.
There actually aren't very many Screen Rant articles today, but there are a lot of bad takes. Here we go.
By the way, you might want to keep an eye out for. I didn't hear the audio from the stinger. I don't know if it came out on YouTube or not.
I heard
So it's just something to check later on. Okay,
it should have come out.
My own problem. Anyway,
sometimes
continue.
the audio that I'm sharing like mutes itself on. Like I have to go in and change the like the volume mixer. It's really weird.
I didn't want to throw anything off. I just wanted to make sure you knew.
No, all good. Agatha's MCU show could be crucial to Phase 5 and the multiverse because it's Agatha all along, guys. She was very crucial in WandaVision. So of course she's gonna be. I bet Agatha made Thanos.
Did you notice they changed it from?
He made Thanos.
She made Thanos. Yeah, she made the Infinity stones that created Thanos because it's literally like King. No, King is just going to be a spell that Agatha made, and then it was Agatha all along, even though I didn't really do anything.
I think they changed the name of the show because it was originally sold as it was going to be called Agatha All Along, and now it's just Agatha House of Harkness. Maybe because they realized, oh yeah, it wasn't really her all along. Anyway, she did do some things, just she didn't create the thing. Yeah. Anyway.
Okay, here's another one. Why Thor didn't grant anyone powers during Endgame like he did in Love and Thunder? Because it was a stupid idea that doesn't make sense if you compare it to any of the other movies. They didn't do it in those movies because it was dumb.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yep.
What's their reasoning?
Because he was channeling his Thor powers through Zeus's Thunderbolt.
Hey, guess what? That's also dumb.
Yeah, it was like combining the two things he could do it.
But
dumb. He didn't, except in that scene, that's not what he does. He holds up the hammer.
Yep.
And
like I said, that's also dumb.
Yeah.
It was Agatha sometimes. Except
it was Agatha that one time.
She literally shows up and the problem is already there and she just hangs out until the end.
She makes the problem worse.
She kills the dog.
Adds a couple
she kills the dog.
She kills the dog. She does a little bit of fiddling with, messing with Wanda while she's there. But yeah,
Pedro.
Here we go. Why Phase 4 is so obsessed with fixing the MCU's worst movies. I've got news for you. Phase 4 are MCU's worst movies.
Yeah. It's hard to fix something if your fix is worse than what came before. It's convoluting everything else.
I'm sorry. But you like they're standing on the shoulders of the people that built the MCU and thinking, oh, we're so tall. We can fix everything, even though they did none of the work and none of the things that made it good.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen A League of Their Own?
I have not.
So this is what I was alluding to before we went into bad takes. In retroactively changing history to make people feel safer. So the original League of Their Own was very problematic and it missed several swings because there weren't any black people on the team. Because it's a period piece that takes place during a time where teams were segregated and there weren't any black people on the team. The story is there was a black woman who auditioned for the show and they said, we love you, you're amazing, but unfortunately we can't put you in the movie because teams were segregated. But they loved her so much they gave her a cameo in the movie. There's a scene where the ball gets thrown out of the field and there's a black woman who picks it up and throws it back and they're all like, who was that? She was amazing. And it's like it's actually a great scene because it's a commentary on we would have loved to have her on the team.
You should have loved to have had her on the team. Yeah.
But racism. Okay. The new show solves this problem by erasing black struggles and putting black people on the team.
Yeah.
Isn't that a little bit insulting to the people who had to suffer through these times to just pretend like they didn't exist? But they're like, their argument is we want to let women of color have their shine on screen. We want to give them opportunities to be characters by erasing their history.
Doesn't make a lot of sense.
The scene in the original movie is fantastic.
Yep.
But we have to make a safe space.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, also, all of the women in the new show are lesbians.
Like, well, I mean, of course, they're playing softball.
Every single one. So,
yep.
There
Wouldn't
you go.
Expect anything less.
Nathalie, I think that's how you say it. Nathalie Emanuel talks about the final season of Game of Thrones, and she says it was never a show that pleased everybody. When was Game of Thrones ever known for doing what everyone wanted it to do?
How about any time before the last season?
She's trying to be poignant here and say that, well, Game of Thrones was always like breaking barriers and doing things shocking on this. It killed off your favorite characters.
I was going to say she's conflating the idea of
yes, there is a lot of conflation going on here.
Yeah,
people didn't have problems with the last season of Game of Thrones because of what happened. They had problems with how it happened, and the showrunners said asinine things like Daenerys just forgot about the Iron Fleet, even though that was literally her only threat. They just made stupid. People loved Game of Thrones because of the subversion of expectations and the harsh decisions that were made in the story. Because it was willing to do crazy things like kill off the main character in season freaking 1. And now you are justifying horrible storytelling by saying Game of Thrones was always horrible.
Yeah, it's kind of the same. It's kind of the same argument I have. I know this isn't the best comparison because they're completely different shows, but the final season of How I Met Your Mother, I absolutely hate, and it's not for the reason that the showrunners think that everybody hates.
They think that everyone hated the last season because they killed off the mother, and that's not why.
No, that was beautiful and poetic, and it's wonderful.
It's
the whole reason.
It's the only thing that would have made sense.
Exactly. That's why he's telling the story to his children. It's great.
People didn't like the last season because it completely destroyed Barney Stinson's character.
Exactly. And again, it was still just that last episode. There are people that I've heard that don't like the entirety of the last season. I actually really like all of the last season,
it's literally
for that last
fantastic
episode.
Until the last episode.
And that was the whole thing, is the entire last season was built around Barney Stinson's character
growing and becoming a better person.
And then the last 2 episodes of the season finale, they just throw it all out the window. And
honestly, they've been building this character for seasons before that. I watched it again not too long ago, and I'm like, oh, they actually were laying this in the whole time.
It starts off in like season 2 or 3 where he starts changing. I think it's season 3 where he starts dating the stripper.
And
it's
or whatever it was, but it's when he started dating the
it's really good.
But and I will say a little bit to their point, it's not necessarily that the mother was killed off. It's the way that they then decided to just kill her off and completely reverse our perceptions of things by making Ted go after Robin in the end anyway.
I didn't even
which
mind
was
that
kind
either.
of weird.
I didn't
just
even
the way
mind
that
that either.
The way that it was done didn't work for me. It was really annoying. But it's like we built up this whole thing for the mother for 9 years, and it's not that you killed her off. She has to be killed off. That makes sense. But like from the very beginning, the first episode is like, and that was, they have the whole story about him meeting Robin, and it's like, and that's how I met your Aunt Robin, but now I'm going to tell you 9 years of something else, which we're going to get really attached to then circle back to that. And it's just the storytelling concept of it rather than the fact that they
to tie back to what we're supposed to be talking about here, which is Game of Thrones.
Sorry.
The reason why the ending was disappointing isn't because Daenerys Targaryen went crazy and killed everybody, because that's clearly the ending that George R.R. Martin had intended for the series. That it was going to be a tragic downfall at the end. The problem was you didn't set it up in the TV show and you rushed it because you were tired and you wanted to be done. And so when it happens in the TV show, it literally comes out of nowhere. I have no problem with it happening. It's how it happened. But Game of Thrones has always been bad. It's like bad things. Stop complaining.
SG had a good comment in the chat there. Season 8 managed to kill off the plot too.
We did. We also skipped over this comment, but Incredible Hulk, talking about the bad movies of the MCU. Yeah. Incredible Hulk is fantastic.
That's fine. Yeah.
And
so was Iron Man 3 too. That article was talking about redeeming Incredible Hulk and Iron Man 3 because of their underutilized villains and stuff. They're talking about Abomination and the Mandarin.
Trevor, yeah.
I also like Edward Norton's portrayal of Bruce Banner infinitely more than
Mark Ruffalo. Oh, he did fine in the first first Avengers and all that
because he was barely in it. Mark Ruffalo can't act. So we got to move on though.
All right, next one. This is a long episode.
Here's a good take. Here's a real good take, everybody. You know who everyone wants to hear from right now? Alec Baldwin.
Oh no! What is he saying?
So Alec Baldwin is throwing shade at Rob Schneider. Now this requires some setup. Rob Schneider recently made a comment on Twitter or somewhere on a show where he was talking about the day that SNL died, and it was in 2016, directly after the Donald Trump Hillary Clinton election. Alec Baldwin had been playing Trump, and Kate McKinnon had been playing Hillary, and it was fine. They were making jokes. It was pretty clearly biased to one side, but they were making fun of both a little bit. And then after the election, SNL opened with, for some reason, Kate McKinnon dressed up as Hillary Clinton. Their cold open. It wasn't a skit. It was her playing Hallelujah on the piano. And that's all it was. She wasn't even in character. She wasn't doing the Hillary voice. She just sang Hallelujah. And Rob Schneider recently made a comment where he said, I realized that's the day that SNL just lost all credibility to me, because I was watching the sketch and I kept thinking, where's the joke? Please put it. There's going to be a joke at the end, right? There's going to be a joke at the end. Put a joke at the end. And that's all. It was just Kate McKinnon, not even in character, dressed up as Hillary Clinton, singing Hallelujah. That was their cold open. And so he said, what does this have to do with comedy? And it's a very valid point. And I 100% agree with what Rob Schneider had to say. But Alec Baldwin's chiming in because we care what he has to say.
Okay, so what do you say?
I don't care. No. Schneider called Baldwin's impression bad, which is a very valid point. He said when he plays Trump, he has nothing but fuming, seething anger towards the actual Trump, which it's really hard to do an impression of someone that you hate. In comedy, it's incredibly hard.
He kind of does the same face with all of his Trump impersonations. You know,
Mm.
I don't think it's
like,
bad per se, but it's just always the same thing.
But he says, like, if you want to do a good impression of someone, you need to like understand them, and it's pretty much impossible to understand someone that you just hate for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
But he's Alec Baldwin says, it must be an incredibly slow news cycle if we're talking about Rob Schneider's thoughts about Kate McKinnon playing Hillary Clinton, something that happened in 2006. God forbid we talk about me killing a person.
Yeah. We'll just sweep that under the rug, shall we?
I just want to say one thing, which is, you know, I'm from this makes no sense, by the way. I've read this 4 times. I don't know what he's trying to say here. I just want to say one thing, which is, you know, I'm from the school, having been in this business for a while, where you criticize someone's judgment and you leave out the idea where you had no problem with their judgment. You had no problem with their judgment when they hired you, when that judgment led them to hire you. You put on the show, and of course, Rob Schneider had a great mind. He's funny. Rob's very funny.
What?
This is a direct
word salad.
I don't know what he's saying.
He must be saying it in a Trump voice. Read it in a Trump voice. It makes more sense.
I'm not good at doing the Trump. Like I'm.
Neither am I.
We had Corwin's pretty good at his Trump.
Yeah.
We have the best. We have the best salad. We
have
have the best word salads. I just want to say one thing, which is, you know, the problem is every time I do Trump, I just go into Boston.
Yeah,
I slip into. We just wanted the one thing, which is, you know, from a school where we had the business where we criticize someone's judgment, you know, and we leave out the idea where you had no problem with their judgment. You know?
Yeah,
I can't do Trump.
Worthy attempt.
But it doesn't make sense, and also, who cares? No one wants to hear from Alec Baldwin right now.
I love that.
The best thing that he could possibly do is stay out of the news cycle.
Yes,
I think it's funny that Alec Baldwin was saying, like, "Oh, it must be really slow news cycle that we're talking about Rob Schneider's thoughts on Kate McKinnon doing, and now we're talking about Alec Baldwin talking about Rob Schneider."
Okay.
Yeah.
This one is a little bit of old news, but it didn't fit into our other shows. But so HBO canceled a bunch of their shows, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're losing tons of money, and they have to. You know, the Batgirl movie the Batgirl TV show was canceled. Batwoman TV show was canceled. Batgirl movie, which is completed, is never going to be seen, and it's because of racism. Laid off HBO Max execs reveal Warner Brothers Discovery is killing off diversity and courting middle America. So this is a disgruntled employee who wasn't making the company money, got fired, and now is saying it's because they're racist. Or now, granted, a lot of the shows that got canceled were very diverse, but you're putting the cart before the horse. These shows were not canceled because they're racist, because they were full of diversity. They're canceled because they weren't making money.
Because once again, they were also putting the cart before the horse in terms of the fact that they were probably generally making them for diversity rather than
to be good.
Yeah,
and so these ones weren't good. But guess what? There's a perfect example of why this isn't the case. Is apparent. So again, I'm missing a little. I don't know a ton about it, but they've moved Blue Beetle from being HBO Max exclusive to being a theatrical one, and that's got a Hispanic main lead character who's going to be Blue Bunny. That's who I was talking about earlier.
But it's racism though, because the girl that was playing Batgirl was Hispanic.
Right.
Also, 13 people of color were in charge of making a show called The Gordita Chronicles.
What? I hadn't heard of that one.
and apparently people wanted to see it so badly and for some reason it was canceled, and it's because of racism.
Yeah, that sounds delicious. Yo quiero gordita crunch.
There is definitely a correlation, but it is not the causation.
Yeah.
Correlation does not equal causation. Listen to scientists.
Not
They're
always.
still going forward with other projects, like you said, that one, and the Black Adam 2 is another one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that one looks decent.
And for some reason, they're still going forward with the Flash.
Yeah, which may or may not.
I kind of understand, because the thing with the Batgirl is they finished filming it, but they haven't put any of the money into the CGI yet.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be an additional investment that there's like, it's not worth it because the quality is not good. With the Flash, they've already done the CGI too. So like the movie is done.
So the other two
now you have the main lead actor who's doing very bad things. So I understand the optics are bad, but I also understand wanting to still release the movie.
Well, the other two issues with that are the fact that it sounds like, from people who've seen the movie, and who knows, giant bag of rock salt with that, that the Flash movie is actually good, whereas the Batwoman movie wasn't, apparently. But then also the Flash movie is apparently integral to the way that they're setting up their universe going forward, whereas Batgirl was just a piece of maybe one of the sorts of universes that they're working on.
The problem is, if they're using that as their flagship to set up their universe, it has to include the person that really shouldn't be included right now.
Only for this movie itself, and then I bet you he is out, and he is not. Like they're definitely flash pointing him out. Like
I think they should just do
a mustache replacement.
A mustache replacement. No.
What they need to say is like, hey, we do not.
They should do a deep fake and replace his character entirely.
What they need to say is like, hey, look, we do not condone or support
exactly
what Ezra Miller is doing, but we're still going to release the movie, and we're not going to go forward with him as the Flash.
The biggest problem is that they have never come out to say we do not condone his actions. That's the biggest problem.
That's something I honestly wish
playing for him right now.
Yeah, I honestly wish that companies would do this, because this is something we need to be, blind to, a character's religious or political backgrounds. And I wish this is something that they did with Gina Carano in The Mandalorian.
Yeah, this is completely different. Hey, like, look, people are going to say,
we do not agree with what he's doing. We do not agree with these actors. They in no way, reflect our morals as a company or something, but they're an actor. They played this role, and they're in this movie.
We're proud of the work that they do,
and that's fine.
There's a pretty big difference, though, between Gina Carano and Ezra Miller.
Agreed.
And people are going to say, "Oh, but I thought you guys didn't like cancel culture and stuff." The difference is, Gina Carano had an opinion. Ezra Miller is committing crimes.
Yeah.
Several.
Yes.
Including underage kids. I can't say the word or I'll get banned.
Yes. No, I agree with you 100%. But, we could get into this topic a lot more. But, I think it would be fine. I would still go see The Flash if they came up with a statement saying, hey, look, we know this character is in the show. This actor, we don't condone any of his behaviors, but, here's the show.
Martina, the girl, crimes don't care about your opinions. We've got some reviews of Amazon's Rings of Power. The OneRing.net is a horrible website, by the way.
Always chilling, yeah.
Amazon's Rings of Power is awesome for the casual fan. The kind of fan that doesn't know anything about Tolkien. It's perfect.
Yeah.
I'm not going to read the rest of this one. Lord of the Rings star. Sorry, that's not written correctly.
Rings of Power
star. Sorry, it's technically Lord of the Rings of Power, but it doesn't count. Lenny Henry applauds Amazon's decision to move away from Tolkien's fair-skinned characters to a diverse cast. The key word there is to move away from Tolkien.
Yeah.
Which I will say, for the most part, it hasn't actually bugged me. But I agree with the fact that it was probably not what they needed to do.
Yeah.
But
they're just saying it now. Before they used to
Mm-hmm.
be, they were saying, no, we're being respectful to Tolkien. And now that we've seen the lies, there's have that. It's good that we're moving away from Tolkien.
Nah, they were admitting that a whole time that they're moving away from Tolkien. They were like, "Oh yeah, this isn't your
Tolkien needed
daddy's
to be
Tolkien."
fixed.
Yeah.
Tolkien was problematic. Orcs are
Jacob.
racist.
Yeah.
So, here's another good one from the Tolkien Society. Does it even matter what Tolkien would have thought of Rings of Power? Kinda. Yeah. This one's really bad. But there was one time in one of his letters where he said that during the Second Age, I'm not going into big detail, and people can think of it in their fill in the gaps with their imagination. He's there's a quote where he says, "Other hands and other minds," and so that's
him giving them license to change his stuff. Yeah.
Again, there's a big difference between being able to put your own stuff in there and then putting your own stuff in there that directly contradicts things that are actually in the rest of the stuff that he has done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pull up Martina's comment there.
Yeah, kind of. It's his life's work. It's almost like he took copious notes and detailed everything about this world,
including backstories and histories and languages and appendices, and
it's all there.
Yeah,
you can even adapt it a bit, like the actual the movies did. But
this week we will find out whether Amazon's hands are worthy, or minds and hands are worthy to fulfill a task of wielding the paint and music and drama. That's calling back to his direct quote. Yeah. But we will discover whether their attempt is absurd. I can't find it's a really long article to read on a stream, but he literally says, like, well, even if it is different, who cares? Like, it's so insulting. Oh, and their excuse is that Christopher Tolkien, his son, didn't like the Lord of the Rings films, and everyone liked those, so it doesn't matter what Tolkien thought. Well, Christopher Tolkien is not J.R.R. Tolkien. That's a different person too. So screw you. I don't know.
Yeah.
But there are some good takes. Entertainment.
Yeah.
Entertainment Weekly. Yes, that's they told the truth. It's kind of a catastrophe, and they're 100% right. It's not great. So good on you, Entertainment Weekly.
I'm seeing a lot more of these articles online saying that the Rings of Power really isn't what everyone thought it was going to be, and it's not reflecting the world of Tolkien. So I'm kind of happy that we're seeing a little bit of that, because that's what we've been screaming the whole time, and everybody else is like, "Oh no, it's amazing! It's going to be so awesome!" And all the critics or all the fake super fans just shouting nothing but praise.
Yeah.
But
this is another good one, though. The print. This one makes me laugh. If Tolkien's work is the Bible, then Amazon Prime's Rings of Power is a litany of sins.
Yes. Go scroll through. So they have a couple headlines.
Just this picture, this still in particular, is breaking so much canon. These characters never met. This character was never the Queen of of Numenor, and they wouldn't have had one of the
Palantir or whatever.
It's okay.
Yeah. I think this is the one that has it. I think this is the article that lays it out pretty good. Yeah. So they're lying. Yeah. So they bring a couple different things there about how they're changing tired tropes. We've talked about that. The stupid wheelbarrow and whatever.
Yeah.
The script flat. So anyways, it's a good article. I'd recommend that you go read through it. But they point out specific examples of how it's not very Tolkien-esque.
Yeah, this costume is real bad, isn't it? Both of them. I don't like either.
Yeah, Galadriel's costume, I don't know what that wrap thing she's got on there. It doesn't look
It's a girdle.
elvish. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
there was one other article that is funny though. And David, you found this one. I'm very proud of you.
Yes.
This is from Polygon.
So this is really good article,
and
it'll be interesting to see how it pans out.
It's interesting. I don't think it's tongue in cheek.
No, I think it's 100%.
I think they're being serious, which is why it's funny.
Yeah.
Because the stranger in Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, I hate that. I'm just gonna say the stranger in Rings of Power isn't who you think it is. So everyone, we think that it's Gandalf. I think that it might be Saruman, but we it's not going to be any of those characters because here's what Tolkien lore says. Do you think that the stranger is Sauron? Here are all the reasons in lore why it's not going to end up being Sauron in the TV show. Okay, that's interesting. Do you think that the stranger is going to end up being Gandalf? Well, here are all the reasons in lore why it's impossible for this character to be Gandalf.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it might be someone else entirely? Well, this doesn't make sense because lore says this and this and that. And
here's why it can't be anybody except for those people.
The problem is, Polygon, you are assuming that they care about the lore.
Yes, exactly. So this article is fascinating to read because they go into very, very detail about how it cannot be Sauron because it breaks canon because of this and this and this. It cannot be Gandalf because it breaks this and this and this, And then at the very end, like, well, it's probably not one of those because it would break canon if they were. So it's probably someone else. Maybe it's Tom Bombadil. Who knows? We'll see. But I mean, it's Gandalf, right? We all know it's Gandalf.
But we also already know that the show has already broken so much canon.
Yeah.
That whoever it ends up being that's not going to be the deciding factor.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyways, this is a good article. I recommend you read through it. And I'd like to revisit this article at the end of Rings of Power.
Oh yeah, that'd be fun to see if they were right, which they won't be.
No.
The show. I recommend that you go see Bullet Train, unless you don't like blood. It's very bloody.
Yeah.
Yes,
Bullet Train was good.
Very fun.
But also don't watch She-Hulk if you have any morals at all. It's not a family-friendly show. I have never heard the name Megan Thee Stallion more times per second than watching episode 3 of She-Hulk. I don't know who Megan Thee Stallion is. I'm being honest here. I thought she was the same person as Cardi B. Because they do the
pretty much personality wise, yeah.
Well, they sang the WAP song together.
Oh, did they?
I don't. Yeah, it was both of them together that did WAP. I thought it was the same person. They both look the same to me, and not because they're black. It's because they're both obscenely overweight. I don't care about Megan Thee Stallion, and this show is just. They said her name so many times.
Yeah.
It's like, is she sponsoring the show?
It's because she was friends with Jamila Jamil, the girl who likes getting her box boxed. And so she set up the cameo, and it's so dumb. It doesn't add anything, and that's literally all the episode is about. And and I like it. They tried to do some like awkward comedy when She-Hulk was giving her like arguments to the parole board, and it just makes her look like a completely incompetent lawyer. And it's because the writers are completely incompetent writers that don't know how to write courtroom dialogue, and it's making their main character look like a moron. Because she's bumbling around. Oh, but I don't even. Oh, don't do that. But like, he'll be. My witness will be here soon.
That's all, folks. That's what
it's just so dumb. It was just bumbling comedy. It was like they tried to do slapstick, but that wasn't done well. And it was trying to do that weird, like awkward comedy, and it was stupid.
Also, same thing with Wong. He showed up and he's like, "You realize you just admitted to a felony?" He's like, "Well, I'm out of here." It's like it just
also that worked for me. Yeah.
When the Abomination transforms, that scene was so stupid. You see, like he's trying to show you, "Hey, I'm completely calm and I'm going to transform into the Abomination."
Yeah, he tells you what he's doing.
Out. And the second he does it, the entire room loses their minds like they haven't been living in a world for the last 20 years infested with superheroes and supervillains. And this guy who's literally locked up in a cage
designed for him
and you already know that he is the Abomination, and these are supposed to be rational people who are screaming on the top of their lungs and can't understand simple things that a baby would understand. That scene was so stupid.
Yeah.
But it was played like a joke. Like, oh my goodness, he's the Abomination and we're all going to die. And he's just like talking quiet. Like, there was so much disconnect. I hate this show so much. And I don't want to see She-Hulk twerking.
Yeah. I don't get twerking.
That was
unnecessary.
Unnecessary.
It's attractive.
It's not attractive. Look here. I know that there are a lot of butt guys. Okay, I'm a boob guy. I like boobs more than butts. But even if I was a butt guy, I would not like twerking.
Yeah.
But the show wasn't made for me. It was made for women. Except that I have to watch it because you put the Daredevil in it.
Yeah. I will say though that the shape-shifting elf character looks more Tolkien-esque than Rings of Power.
Yep.
David, are you a boobs or a butt guy?
Oh, boobs all the way.
Boobs guy. Jared, boobs or butt?
Do I have to choose? Like, come on.
We have to.
Like,
we have to.
no. Let's get them both.
Both. Okay.
¿Por qué no los dos?
Yeah, let's save those. Let's save
Por los cuatro? No.
Let's,
anyway.
Jared, we shall spare you the bag of rocks this episode because I like what you're spitting out. But I think it's all important that this entirely male cast objectifies the women objectify the women in the show by.
I don't know. Yeah. I honestly here's my bag of rocks take that. Yeah. I didn't mind it that much. The twerking at the end was unnecessary, but whatever. I think that there's a lot of it's trying to connect with the modern audience that is not us in any way, shape, or form. Not necessarily just the not us guys, but like the people who are excited about hearing body yaddy yaddies in a Marvel show. Sure, like okay, it's whatever. Like it's a song that has a cool beat, sure. But yeah, and the rest of it I didn't mind. I mean, yeah, she bumbled, but it was mostly because Wong was kind of late. I don't know. And Wong being goofy, Wong really is goofy, and especially anytime he's not been in his own movie or I guess in a Doctor Strange movie. So that all worked fine for me. There was weird stuff, but yeah.
I get what they were trying to go for. It was just a little bit too ham-fisted for me. It just didn't feel. It just didn't flush out.
Also, I can't. The other case where she's representing the douchebag guy.
Yes,
she's not, but the other guy is.
I completely forgot who he was, and I kept getting him mixed up with the lawyer friend. I couldn't tell them apart, and I had no idea who was who.
Are you saying that all guys look alike? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. but I'm saying they've had so little. They've had so little screen time. I have no idea who these characters are. But he was already in the show, right? The one she's defending. He was like the one working against her.
He was the one that was working with her and saying like, "Oh, you're doing a terrible job of doing your closing argument. You should let me do them."
He was the one from the opening scene who she said, "You were useless.
You're useless." Because I thought, a pretty chick. Let's go talk at it. It's the same guy.
I thought he was the lawyer who was the opposing counsel. who says
No.
it doesn't matter that my guy killed people. I
no.
had no idea who he was.
No, it was the overwrought stereotype, misogynist,
over the top misogynist. So it's
way over the top
whatever.
misogynist.
I do
And
appreciate
I
that they're not
genuinely
making
did
all the
not
men
know.
like that. Yeah,
I didn't know which men,
Yeah.
which because they're all of the male characters are the same, except for the one
a lot
guy.
of them are, yeah.
and
And
he's over the top and he's a bit much, but I can accept the fact that he's a bit much as long as they're not making any of the like a bunch of other guys be so much over the top like that, because they've got the lawyer that actually ends up defending him, who's her friend or coworker or whatever. And it's like he's fine,
but
yeah,
I don't know. It's just
the guy who was
jokes
doing the
aren't funny.
defending, yeah. I found them mildly amusing. I wasn't laughing out loud, but I was,
But it's supposed to be a comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I've heard lots of people talk online. It was like, oh yeah, it was so great to see that douchebag lawyer, ridiculed in that way. Like, oh, he's so self-absorbed that he thought he was really dating Megan Thee Stallion or whatever. And yeah, it would have been funny if he wasn't this over-exaggerated, character. He's like a caricature of misogyny. It's not like no real person would act like that.
It
no
would have
real
been
person. Like even if you think that, you don't say it out loud.
Yeah.
It's just like he's just so unbelievably ridiculous that it just it took me out of the show. So
yeah, and when the fairy lady takes over the good lawyer's body,
shows up looking like him.
I like objectifying women. Well, she walks out of his office
looking like him,
pretending to be him. I like objectifying women in the workplace, and like,
that
I actually honestly
lady was too much too.
I actually kind of appreciated that aspect in particular as a like showing where like some people are going to pretend like any guy is going to be like that, and he comes out and he's like, that you guys know me, that's not me, it's just this woman who's trying to pretend like, oh, I could ruin your reputation by saying that about you, but it turns out that these people actually know him and he wouldn't say that. So I don't know, I didn't mind that. I kind of saw it being a good, quote unquote good, at least an acknowledgement of there being another side to it, rather than just the like men are pigs, men are terrible, that's all that there is, there's only terrible men in the world. So yep, that's something that I have been appreciating, is even though that this show does have a lot of things that are complaining about issues with women and guys and the issues that they have between them, they do at least make some concessions that make it so it's not all black and white. It's only men are bad and women are good kind of thing. So
yeah,
I like this point though, that they kind of make real misogyny in men seem like a myth because of how silly they're making these unbelievable characters.
Yeah, that's good too. That's a good point.
It's like there are real misogynistic a-holes in the world, but they don't go out and flaunt it like that. They don't come out and say, "Oh, there's a hot chick. Let me go talk to it."
Yeah, and
they act suave.
This is a great point.
Down inside, they are
conflating objectification with attraction.
Yes,
and I'm sorry, but if you're going to end your show with two women twerking, I don't understand how you could be upset about the objectification point, and much less being attracted to something.
Yeah.
This is a great point. Bad guys do exist, and they're sneaky about their evil stuff.
Right. That's how Harvey Weinstein got away with it for so long, right?
Yeah.
And Bill Cosby.
I think with Harvey
Cosby in particular.
I think Harvey Weinstein's
it was just straight up power.
Weinstein had so much power that he didn't need to be sneaky about it, and because everyone was talking about it. There's a reason that we know the term casting couch. Like everyone knew what it was because it was happening so much. It's just that he had so much power. No one could do anything about it.
You're right. That's a bad example.
To think that Harvey Weinstein was the only person doing that kind of stuff. And Hollywood is so virtuous. There was only one of us that was ever bad.
Maybe maybe Harvey Weinstein, though, looking at Hollywood in that light, maybe that's why they think that all men are these terrible predator, misogynistic.
Because they're in a bubble.
The people writing these shows, that's probably all they know.
Yeah.
Yep.
They don't know
they
what real
exist
life
in that
is
bubble
like.
where they're seeing either the people that look like Pug, the friend, or the over the top guy. Because I will say, even though for the most part I don't really think that exists, I can give a little bit of credence to. There are probably at least still some people that do a little bit of that stuff. They're just not in our circles, and it becomes really frustrating.
They probably only exist in Hollywood.
They're just that big of a bubble, you know.
Yeah, no. If there was anyone who acted remotely close to that kind of care, like, they wouldn't be in my life, right? I'd be like, I do not want to be friends with you.
Yeah.
Like, leave.
Yeah.
Yep.
Also, you can't get a job if you act like that.
No.
Anywhere outside of Hollywood.
Yeah.
Anywhere outside of the 1970s. Or 60s.
That lawyer must be a damn good lawyer if he's still employed and acts that way in the office. Like, talk about
like
constant
HR departments. Yeah.
Like they would jump on that so fast.
And again, this is not to say that the system is perfect or it's all been fixed. Like,
no,
there
are evil people out there, and they get away with it because they're secretive.
They're sneaky. Yeah.
Right.
Not because they like it's so dumb. It's the same thing. It's minimizing the actual suffering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's the same story of
harassment.
It's the same problem that I have with A League of Their Own. You are diminishing the real life plights of people by doing this kind of junk.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Anyways, that's a light note to end our stream on.
I can toss in more about the freaking Orville being so beautiful.
Yeah. Tell us about. We gotta end on a happy note, baby. Tell us about the Orville. Okay, first off, how'd you like the end of season 2?
So I'm trying to remember exactly where that ended because
it ends with the big battle.
With the big battle
with the Kalon.
against the Kalon, right? Where they get the Krill to side with them, right?
Yeah.
So spoilers, by the way, in case anybody hasn't watched.
We're spoiling the Orville. Yeah. Shut up.
Somehow you hadn't figured that out. Yeah. But yeah, so that was really good and kind of interesting. And I was wondering how long it was going to be before what's her name, the Talea. I think not Talea. The Krill lady that pretended to be his girlfriend.
Oh, the Krill.
No, the Krill one.
Yeah. Shoot, what's her name?
It
does start with like a T, I think. Yeah, it's something like that. But yeah, I was wondering how long it'd take for her to come in and muck things up. And boy, that was kind of a cool little thing. Man, and just the emotion and power in those last handful of episodes, like all the stuff with Topa and like, oh my gosh, it was. Because even as somebody who is a religious person, so I have my own perspectives on things, like just how well they presented that was just so beautifully done.
Did you love the Dolly Parton episode? It is so freaking good because it's so ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly.
But like super emotional at the same time for some reason.
Yeah.
I will say, so I've thought this from the beginning.
It's so ridiculous.
Seth MacFarlane's acting is not,
and they're all just like, it's so stupid and so good.
I'm very glad that they did get her to come in and cameo for that.
Oh,
although it made me wonder because sometimes her face looked a little bit disconnected from her body, so it made me wonder. But
they did
sure they had her
aging for sure. Yeah,
did they? Okay, that makes sense.
They de-aged her because she was supposed to be like a hologram, but they
which
got
makes sense.
her to really come in. She was credited.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's Talea.
Okay.
Talea.
Talea, and then what's the
Tala is the other.
Tala Kiali, and then there's Talea. Yeah, there we go. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, all of that was just so good, and I will say I've been thinking from the beginning. Seth MacFarlane's acting not always the best. Sometimes he does a solid job, but sometimes it's like that was a little wonky.
Yeah, but he's the straight man. He doesn't need to be. Yeah.
But you also don't expect him to be the straight man because he's freaking Seth MacFarlane. Yeah. So I can't quite take him seriously half the time.
Why would it's so?
Why is he?
It's such a weird choice. But
so
yeah,
weird,
Seth MacFarlane for some
He's the funny
reason,
guy.
is the straight man in his own show.
But then you have Adrian Padalecki, not Padalecki, whatever, however you say her name.
Yeah, she
Holy
is
cow.
fantastic.
She is so good.
Love her acting.
She pulls that power and those
Mhm.
the tears in her eyes without tears coming down so beautifully, so often. It's so good. I can't get over it, and just all the stuff with Isaac, and I'm actually going to go a little spoiler light because my wife's in here and I really want her to come and watch it. Oh, okay, she's leaving again.
Okay.
Because she was really liking the show, and I think in particular a lot of these storylines in season 3 she is going to love, because she's going to love what they're saying, but it's also done really, really well. So even it's so good.
What did you think of Ensign Burke's send off?
That was beautiful and touching as well. It was one of those things where it was a fairly tried and true concept that, like, and she didn't.
Sure.
She came around only a little, like only enough to like be like, she wasn't all the way around yet. So it was a bit of a leap, but also like it's what you expect. But it was tried and true in terms of like, this is a nice sentimental thing that she is going to make this sacrifice, because that is really cool that she will do that.
That is a perfect example of a trope that is not cliche.
And that's the thing, is the concept of the trope is pretty cliche, but they did it well enough that it didn't make it feel bad.
Makes using it, because trope just means something that's done frequently, right? Mm-hmm. Or a common story beat,
right?
Tropes are not bad things. Cliche is when you take a trope and you execute it so poorly that it has no originality.
Yeah. It was well done, and that's why I think for me it wasn't like, wow, this was beautiful and amazing, is because it was such a tried and true trope.
It was fantastic.
It was done well enough that it didn't. Again, exactly to your point, it was done well enough that it did not make me go like, it didn't make me roll my eyes like, oh, of course she acted it really well. Again, what really worked for me was Isaac's acting in response to that, and the primary's acting in response to that. Because again, all very expected behaviors, but they did such a good job.
The best characters are the ones that don't have emotion in this show.
So good. I loved the finale with the Kalons at the wedding, and just how in sync they all are. And they all show up.
Isaac, did you invite the whole Kalon fleet?
I love saying that. Good. This is a great little like thing. Oh, my goodness.
It's funny, like, because you see him doing it. It's not a surprise that they show up. But
when he's doing it, you're like, oh, this is gonna be real interesting. Oh, and gosh, Gordon's storylines with falling in love with the girl from the 21st century and the whole thing, and just and being like, oh, but and then he tries to change something and realizes this broke it because it's not her, and then of course he's sent back to the 21st century, and so he
the way it ended was just like, my goodness,
and then of course you're like, the whole struggle between, no, we have to take you back. No, we have to
go back in time. Go back in time and stop you from ever meeting her.
And what ended up being so good then too is that
he immediately says, "Oh yeah, you made the right choice. I'm sorry."
Yeah, he goes. He doesn't keep it a secret from him for the rest of his life. He's like, "No, look, this is what happened," and you get it, because from Gordon's perspective, you completely get Gordon's perspective. You're like, no, you're still here. That means that nothing's happened, or all those different things. I don't care if it's going to mess up the timeline, because this is my family. Do not mess with my family. And it's just so powerful. And then to come back around,
his character,
he does understand.
Says it.
To be like, no, you made the right choice. That was selfish of me. Well, at the same time, you're like, it was selfish of you, but it makes perfect sense that it'd be so that you would still, especially in that timeline, be committed to staying with that. Like,
that episode made me feel
was so beautiful.
And I really hope that they revisit this, like maybe do some multiversal thing, like, oh, hey, this alternate version of you exists somewhere
in some other planet. That
would be cool. Really interesting.
Get kind of how Trek does their mirror verse, and it pops up from time to time.
That would be really interesting if they revisit that and be like, hey, look, I made this wrong choice right there, but I might be happier like this, you know.
They can explore that. They can explore something bad happens and he gets mad at him for whatever reason. So you can go into the mirror concept there.
The Orville is the perfect example of how to do representation right.
Because it hits all the things that you would expect, that you would think, based on some of our other conversations and what you would assume are reasons for being against, you know, difficulties with the Rings of Power or this, that, and the other. Oh, we're a bunch of white guys. It must be that we're racist. No, if you watch, when we watch these shows that do it really well, we love it.
And going back to Ensign Burke, she's a lesbian character, right? She is fantastic.
Probably
I was really
sad with that a little bit, but either way,
I didn't notice that, but that's right, because she was flirting with the other engineer guy at one point,
and she hadn't admitted to her friend that she was in love with her and all that. But
but yeah, I mean that's
her character is phenomenal.
Yeah, her character is so good, and it's not. Well, her whole entire character wasn't built around her being bi. That wasn't her character. Her character had so much more to it than that. She could visualize 3D space, and it came into play several times.
So often,
and I really felt her backstory. I felt bad for her losing this significant other that she had, and that's how you do that kind of character.
And to me, it seems like, you know, if I were of a different persuasion, these are the kinds of versions of myself that I would want to see. You know, versions that have stories and personality apart from their sexual preference.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that to me I think is really powerful example of that is also the issues of gender, the Mocklins, because that's so well done that you get to struggle with
the finale of season 3 with Bortus
and Clive,
and Clyden, running around naked in the forest.
That was so awkward.
He will run, and I must pursue him. I will.
But they do it in a way where
I have to force myself upon him. It is our culture.
It's just so good.
It's so uncomfortable but hilarious. And I love their characters.
Yeah,
it's so freaking good. I'm trying to look through some of these other ones that were.
The best part though is when they're done and
they're just forehead to forehead staring at each other for a minute and a half. Yeah,
and finally, who was it just starts?
It was
Gordon.
Yeah, Gordon. Yeah.
What are we doing?
They're still clapping, and everyone's like, "So what else?" but then I mean, you got everything going on with Topa and everything, where it's just like, wow, that's a really that touches on a lot of really tough and touchy subjects.
Yeah,
they handle it so well, and you feel for them, and again, because they don't do it in a way that becomes straight up preachy. The characters have their perspectives, some of my characters have another perspective, and they both preach to you about why their perspective is important.
But the show isn't telling you who's right and who's wrong.
The show even ends up with I think the show even does still tell you that what they do is the right thing, but they don't do it in a way that makes you feel dumb for thinking for if you have at least some concerns when you're thinking from the other side.
Yeah,
you know,
a point that David and I brought up when we talked about this without you is that a really clever thing that they do is they blend up the politics. Yeah, so they are talking about current stuff, and they mix it up so well that neither side can get offended by it.
Right,
yes.
Right. Well, and that was one of the things that I thought was really beautifully done in Zootopia. I know the odd call out to another old Disney movie.
What?
That they did that same sort of thing where they had disagreements and issues that they presented, but by splitting it up into different areas with the predators versus the things and the prey, and then also I don't know, they just played with some things really well there that I thought hey. It was one of those things that I remember after watching that I felt hey, they did that really well, that made it so that you could kind of have these kinds of discussions, but without feeling oh, well, this show is saying it's this thing, and therefore this one side is right because this one side is exactly the same as the cops versus the bad guys versus the aggressors versus she was trying to do the right thing, but she made a mistake, but it it was kind of genuine, and she had a good point, but it was just still wrong. Like,
that's a good comparison. Now that I think about it,
in the episode on Krill, like there's clearly two political parties, but they don't say, "Hey, this side is Trump and this side is Hillary Clinton," right? They both sides have have aspects of Republicans, and both sides have aspects of Democrats. So you have the America First Krills are also super pro-life. And so like it's not saying, hey, this side's right, this side's wrong. It's saying, hey, these are issues, think about them.
Yeah, and these are different cultures and how they believe in certain things,
and showing
but it's brilliant because they jumble it up so no one can get offended.
Well, one of the things that's beautiful with that too is that like you could see how it's not, when they jumble it up, it's not like they're putting two things together that you end up seeing and you're like, how do they believe those two things that in our world are opposite? They do it in a way where it's like that actually makes sense within the context of their show of what's going on. That these things that are intrinsically polar opposites for us or in our political debate, even though they're not actually intrinsically opposite, which is the point, even though they seem polar opposites, they could be the same thing. So like, it's not.
It's so it is.
You don't have to be polarized.
It's the same thing. It's so clever.
Yeah,
so well done.
It's the same thing. We've already talked about this again without you, Jared. But it's the same thing.
Yeah, I need to go back and watch
the transgenderism episodes. They make commentary about transitioning, about detransitioning, about age of consent, about doing so without parental permission or with the permission of one parent and not the other. They talk about the maturity age of being able to make. Old enough to make those mature decisions, but again, they jumble it up and they talk about it and they mix the different perspectives so that it's different from real world current political politics. So you can't object to one side because they have elements of both. It's just brilliant. It's so good how they do that.
And then all the stuff with Isaac and his suicide, and then then Topa struggling with that. And that was powerful again.
Yeah, and
the suicide episode is my favorite episode.
Gosh, yeah, it was so good, so deep.
I love suicide so much. I loved how they talked,
how they handled suicide. It. Yeah, they did handle it very, very well.
It was very mature. And
showing Kelly struggling with how to deal with what she's seeing from Topa. Oh,
she's like, I can see the warning signs. I can see something is wrong with her. With Topa. It's so good. It's so good.
Beautiful.
So,
anyways,
we don't hate everything. We like things that are good. So make things that are good.
Yes.
I mean.
Make Orville, make Bullet Train, make the Terminal List.
Look how much money Top Gun is making. It's insane that this movie is still in theaters. That does not make sense at all, but it is.
Have they renewed the Orville for season 4?
Not yet. Not like officially.
Please,
but I mean, it's going to get renewed.
Don't do this to me again.
They moved Orville over to
my wolves.
They moved Orville over to Disney Plus. It's going to get a lot more eyes on it. There's no doubt in my mind it's going to be renewed.
I am hoping and that's exactly what I'm going for. Why I watch it on Disney Plus is to show them there is an audience that is so excited to see this.
Please don't renew it on Disney Plus.
Yeah,
well, I mean,
they're expanding Disney Plus's oeuvre, if you will, about the
but imagine I think they're getting ready to trying to take over running this show, and just removing all of the things that make it great.
Please don't do that part. But yeah, gosh, it's just so good because, and I've been preaching the gospel of the Orville to everybody that I can find. I've been telling my brother. I've told people on the Discord server. I've been telling friends of friends, Hannah's friends, because again, it's a show that works so well for everybody. Because Hannah and a lot of her friends, they have a lot of particularly progressive political perspectives, left leaning stuff, and I brought it up to a bunch of her friends, and Hannah's like, yeah, there's not really anything problematic about it. I'm like, yeah, there's not. But it's also something that is so well done that even people that might vehemently disagree with a lot of your politics are also loving this show, and you will love this show too. It's so good.
Yeah.
Just trick people into watching it. Just like Seth MacFarlane did into making it. Just tell people it's a comedy, and then they'll be like, "Why did you do this to me?"
I've told so many people, and they're like, "Oh yeah, isn't that like a Star Trek spoof?" I'm like,
"Sure,
yes, but
yeah,
no,
it is.
It absolutely is.
Give it it's funny,
but it's just
I promise. There's jokes the whole time."
Gosh, because Gordon really is that comedy, and I realize what it is that where the comedy comes from is that they're not. Oh, we're Star Trek people, and they're not high and mighty ideals. They're just people. They're straight like normal people, and so they react to these weird like all the time. Oh my gosh, the bit where maybe I talked about this last time, but where Isaac tries gets back together with Claire on the bridge, and
with Lamar,
and they're all just sitting there in the rain,
and then he goes. Are you talking about this?
Okay.
Are you talking about the scene where he goes and propositions Tala to?
No, I'm talking about. I think this is back in season 2, the first time that they're together, where they're like, he's like, no, you need to go back and get the girl back after he breaks up with her by being on the couch demanding that she make him dinner and all that. Way back, and then they go on the bridge.
Seasons 1 and 2. It's been a while.
They go back on the bridge, and Isaac turns on rain in the bridge, and everyone is watching him say, basically, I am better with you than without you because I made a mistake because my sub process, whatever. And they're all just like sitting on the bridge in the rain, watching this super intimate scene. And so every now and then you come to them going, what? And then Gordon ends it with like, we've got to be the freaking weirdest ship in the Union. Like, and he has another line like that at the end of season 3.
Some of the best comedic moments are like the gossip elements that run around the ship, where everyone's talking about Claire and Isaac, and everyone knows everything about everyone's personal lives. And
Mom, I don't think you've really grasped the concept of a small ship. You already knew that he proposed. Like,
or the scene with Tala and the engineer trying to have a relationship, and she keeps breaking his ribs. And
I was working out too hard in the simulator.
Well, the metaphor that he, when he's like talking about working out, but I love it so much, but it's hurting me, and I don't want to give it up because I like it so much. That was good. But it's not good. But it's not good for you. But I like it so much.
I'm intrigued to see where they go with that. I was glad that they brought Alara back for the last episode, even though it was just hello, because I do miss her. I really do miss her.
Yeah,
I'm intrigued. Here's a good reason for them to bring back.
Tala's hotter too, so
yeah. I can't disagree with that. You had Alara. Alara was very much the little kid, and I think that they didn't want to.
It was a good dynamic. Like the little sister kind of thing.
thought it was a really good dynamic with her. That's why I really liked her. It was the good dynamic. But you're right, Tala's hot. But
I think Tala looks like the older sister of Alara. Honestly, I think they could be siblings. But in fact, for a couple episodes,
if I'm being honest,
why did they change Alara's hair? They're doing her hair on the side. I'm like,
because it had been a while. Because it had been a while. I took a break between seasons. When I started watching it, I was like, I forgot. I forgot that it was a different character.
I turned to my wife and I'm like, did something happen to Alara's ear? Because they're doing her hair like over this ear or something. And she's like, that's not Alara. That's Tala. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot she left.
They've got to come back though. They've got to come back for season 4 so that they can do their Borg thing. Now that I actually know what you're talking about with the Borg thing.
The bio Borg stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
And that being Claire's ex, that was an interesting little bit there.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff.
We have gone for 3.5 hours. I think this is our longest episode of Best Gen yet.
So, yeah.
But I think it's a good place to end the conversation, and I'm going to go to sleep. But I wanted to add, I want to add another little thing of levity. This was a bright little shining light of funniness that I found in the comment section to one of the trailers for Rings of Power. And whoever wrote this is a genius.
There's some comedy gold down there in the comment section, let me tell you.
There is some good stuff.
I don't know who started the trend, but just go read any comment section in Rings of Power or She-Hulk or Star Wars, Marvel. A lot of these shows have the same similar vein of comment, and it's great. I don't know who started the trend, but chef's kiss, tip the hat to you.
I'm gonna. So I took a screenshot of it because it's gonna be impossible to like find again, because there are so many.
It's so hard to find a comment.
Well, half of them are getting deleted. More than half. The
Really?
downvotes are being deleted. My downvote was deleted. I had to go back and re-downvote. The comment section is quality. So I'm gonna read this and then we'll end the stream here. But it's so funny, man. Where share my screen again. I accidentally closed the. Here we go. Oh no, I forgot.
Get on with it.
It began with the forging of the great films. Threads were given by Tolkien, immortal, wisest and fairest of all. Rights were granted to Jackson, great miner and craftsman of the mountain of lore. And 9 hours were gifted to the race of men who above all else desire quality. But they were all of them deceived. For another show was made in the land of Amazon in the fires of Mount Prime. The Dark Lord Bezos forged in secret a master flop, and into the show he poured his money, his greed, and his will to dominate all film. One show to ruin them all.
That's beautiful.
That's so good. That is poetic. That is
beautiful.
Alexander
As somebody who isn't even
Mandolin.
hating it as much as you all are.
You are a genius. Alexander Mandolin, bravo. I don't know if you're the original author of this, but I hope so, because so good.
Brilliant.
That's hilarious.
We'll
776 likes is not nearly enough for that.
This was like a week
crafty
ago
shit.
too, so
Yeah.
And I don't know which video it was on, but maybe try and find it and give it a little upvote. Thanks for sticking around for this long. Next week might be shorter, depends on how crappy the episodes are.
Yeah.
Right.
We shall see.
Buy my merch.
Yeah.
I think there's a good chance that we're the only ones that are actually here now. I'm
Yeah.
seeing 3 watching.